And we're live. Testing, 1, 2, 3. We're on a couple of minutes early, folks. I've got a dog barking outside. I wonder if anyone can hear. Sorry, folks, we could not get on. Whatever happened, we got booted at 9 o'clock. Pardon me. And for the first time ever, in how long? 4 years of doing this, YouTube managed to reconnect me, I think. But I think you guys said that you couldn't see any video or audio, so I've just popped on early. From my point of view, everything seems to be working okay, and I'll hopefully have somebody saying hello to me in a wee moment or two. So if anybody is out there, do say hello, folks. I'm probably chatting to myself at this point. Nothing new there, but I suppose from my point of view, yeah, I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station. Haven't been well for a few weeks, as I said earlier. Pardon me. So we've been off for a wee bit. There's Sean Wyland saying good evening. Hi, Sean. Can you see and hear me? Okay. Could you let me know, please, with a wee type, if you wouldn't mind. And otherwise, good evening to you. It's good to see you. We were supposed to be on for 9 o'clock tonight, Sean, and we got booted. And then we got reconnected, but nobody could see or hear me. So that's why I just popped on a wee early to test this, and if all's well, we'll go ahead. Hopefully. So as I said, and if anybody else is out there, say hello. Pardon me, but we're still a wee bit early yet. Yes, no, but excellent, Sean. Thank you very much. That's good to know. Hopefully things will go okay. But there's 10 o'clock, folks. So what for anybody who's returning, I'll say hi. I'm Doc Sloan. Thanks very much for joining me on my science fiction station here at the Doghouse on YouTube. And tonight we're going to be having a second attempt at Chapter 6 on our Children of Dune book club. We got booted at 9 o'clock, sort of funnily reconnected, but nobody could hear or see me. We could only sort of type. So this is our second attempt. Fingers crossed, everything should be okay. Pardon me. I said I have been ill for a wee bit, and I'm still not 100%, but I'm feeling a lot better, and hopefully we can get things going and get back into a sort of regular pattern. You can hear me. I'm still a wee bit wheezy, chesty, but I'm loads better than what I have been, and I kind of had all my energy kicked out of me, I suppose, for the last couple of weeks. So apologies, folks, just sickness. I'm sure after hopefully a couple of coughs here to clear my throat, we'll get going, because I thought I was doing quite well the last time. So as usual, if anybody is out there, say hello. And this chapter, I suppose, just quickly shifts the attention back towards the twins, Leto and Ghanima. And this is a pretty good chapter, actually. It's quite it really does focus, I suppose, on Leto's internal struggle, if you like. Pardon me. The beginning of the separation of the twins, in terms of their abilities and their sense of oneness, if you like, which is mirrored in the same kind of way as we have that change between Alia and Paul with their abilities in Dune Messiah early on, where Alia starts to feel out of step with Paul's prescience and so on and so forth. And there's a little bit about this. Maybe we'll have a wee chat about it later on, I think, just in relation to comparing, the reiteration of things within the Dune series. And in particular, this chapter is going to tell us about the ecological changes to Arrakis, and it's going to give us a viewpoint that's going to go back pretty much to a prehistoric viewpoint, I think. And we're going to learn a little bit extra about the life cycle of the sandworms and the sand trout, and how that life cycle operates and is a part of the ecosystem and life on Arrakis, if you like. And we're going to see that the harm has been done, that the idea of the great plan, the great ecological plan, has started to do real harm, and it's going to cause problems. And this is the chapter where we really kind of get to see that. And of course, the other part of that is that I suppose the discussion between Leto and Ghanima, are we sort of seeing Leto starting to head towards Abomination, this kind of thing. This is the chapter that we have a little bit of a natter about Jacurutu as well, which should be fun. So we have a couple of wee things interesting to look up today. Yeah, it's a good wee chapter. I quite like it. And again, one of the things I like to think about with Children of Dune is, in many ways, if we describe Dune itself, what kind of book is it? One of the ways to describe it's a buildings-roman. It's a coming-of-age novel, and we don't have that with Dune Messiah. But we kind of have a bit of a return to that with these two characters. These two 9-year-old children, actually, it's quite interesting. We're going to get a bit of a discussion about how they're viewed, I suppose, or how any information that might come from these two children might be viewed by the Fremen, etc. There's I'll check in with some comments before we get cracking, folks. There's Cynthia saying, "Hi Doc, video and sound good so far. Good to hear, Cynthia. If things go completely foobar, folks, we'll just go again tomorrow. But by all accounts, this one's looking well, so we're just going to go ahead and hopefully everything's cool." Once more, onto the breach, says Carlos. Hey guys, greetings, Carlos. Thank you very much for joining us again. And there's Nathan Gradiville saying, "Hey Doc, popping in to say hi, still catching up." No worries, Nathan. Thanks very much for joining us. And Jimmy Fokker saying, "Hi Doc, where can we read your Dune PhD? You can read it at Jacurutu.com." Jimmy Fokker, you have to go to Jacurutu. There's a copy on there. And of course, the videos are on my YouTube channel. Let me just see. I keep a wee bookmark here for it. So if anybody wants to get a copy of my PhD, the actual text, you can find it at Jacurutu, the Forbidden Siege, home of all things taboo within the Fremen. We're going to learn just a little bit about it today. It's a bit of mystery. And I suppose we'll go have a wee look into the word as well, because we do have a bit of a relationship with that word, particularly with an animal, and I also a South American myth, I believe, which I've got bookmarked here for you folks. So there we go. So yeah, it's good to see you all, folks. Apologies, I really do enjoy doing this, so I'm always a bit gutted when I can't get back at it, and I really have had the teeth kicked out of me for the last couple of weeks, so I've not been near a mission. I've just been in bed and I've just been doing a bit of patchy reading and sleeping. So but yeah, looking forward to this. Here we go. Here's our start off with our epigraph. I give you the desert chameleon, whose ability to blend itself into the background tells you all you need to know about the roots of ecology and the foundations of a personal identity. Book of Diatribes from the Hate Chronicle. I think this in particular is in reference to Leto here in many ways. And the chameleon, of course, I suppose, is one of those interesting things, evolutionary. A lot of people always talk about fight or flight responses, not realizing that there's a fair few more options on the table. And hide is a good one. But the ability to blend in, it's amazing. Animals like that, aren't they? Some octopuses do that as well. I'm sure there's all sorts of animals do it, but quite a lot of lizards. But the chameleon in particular here, its ability to blend itself into the background tells you what you need to know, all you need to know about the roots of ecology and the foundations of a personal identity. And that they're going to be that they go hand in hand, I would say, with Leto the Second, as this character develops. And it's going to be interesting, really, with Leto, because we're going to see him develop from this 9-year-old, this twin, who's a Fremen and I suppose heir to the throne at this point. We're going to see him develop through this book, and then the next time we're going to meet Leto, there's going to be a hell of a jump, and we're going to be looking at his sense of personal power in particular, I suppose, but also the ideas of ecology that we'll see begin with him in this in this chapter. There's Babs Bilo saying, "Evening Doc, howdy all, howdy Babs, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. Again, apologies for before. We got sickness for the last couple of weeks, and then we got booted at 9 o'clock. But everything seems to be going fine, Babs. So we're just going with the epigraph. That's from the Book of Diatribes from the Hate Chronicle. Pardon me. Right. I tell you what I would love to do is I would love to set up a foot switch, like a guitar pedal, and connect it to my computer so I could stomp on it when I'm going to have a cough and cut the mic. That would be useful. I'm probably seriously overcomplicating that. There's probably just push a key or something. In fact, push the mic button. But yeah, you have to have the presence of mind to do it when you're coughing, just before you cough, don't you? Sorry, I'm rambling, folks. Anyway, here we go. I was just checking one wee thing here. Right, okay, so off we go. Leto sat playing a small balisette which had been sent to him on his 5th birthday by that consummate artist of the instrument, Gurney Halleck. In 4 years of practice, Leto had achieved a certain fluency, still gave him trouble. He had found the balisette soothing, however, for particular a fact which had not escaped Ghanima. And we can take that as that's what's going on here. That as Leto is playing the instrument, it's chilling him out a bit, if you like. He sat now in twilight on a rock shelf at the southernmost extremity of the craggy outcrop which sheltered Siege Tabor. So that's our place and time, if you like. Softly he strummed the balisette. And Ghanima stood behind him, we're told, her small figure radiating protest. She had not wanted to come here into the open after learning from Stilgar that their grandmother was delayed in Arrakis. She particularly objected to coming here with nightfall near. Attempting to hurry her brother, she asked, "Well, what is it?" And for answer, he began another tune. For the first time accepting the gift, Leto felt intensely aware that this balisette had originated with a master craftsman on Caladan. He possessed inherited memories which could inflict him with profound nostalgia for that beautiful planet where House Atreides had ruled. Leto had but to relax his inner barriers in the presence of this music, and he would hear memories from those times when Gurney had employed the balisette to beguile his friend in charge, Paul Atreides. Pardon me. I had a wee bit of fun here. I scribbled that the gift is the balisette's from a master craftsman on Caladan, and I scribbled down here, not Chusuk. Where's the copy of Dune? Oh, paperclip. Just because if we have a wee look at, I'm pretty sure it's in here. If you check the terminology of the Imperium, the Chusuk is the 4th planet of Thetis Shalish. The so-called music planet, noted for the quality of its music instruments and also C. Verota. So we've got the fact that there's a planet in Dune that's noted for its instruments, but that's not where this comes from. It's from Caladan. And I suppose not Chusuk is perhaps that the gift, not just to the fact that it's a musical instrument to remind Leto of certain things from Gurney, but to remind him of Caladan, basically. Or not that Leto has any real memories of Caladan, but he has plenty of memories of Caladan, as we can see from the inner memory, if you like. And so we're going to see that this association with the instrument, certain thoughts, is also an association with his father, Paul. And he hears memories from those times when Gurney had employed the balisette to beguile his friend in charge, Paul Atreides. That's his father. So with the balisette sounding in his own hands, Leto felt himself more and more dominated by his father's physical presence. Still he played, this is this bit here, still he played, relating more strongly to the instrument with every second that passed. He sensed the absolute idealized summation within himself, which knew how to play this balisette, though 9-year-old muscles had not yet been conditioned to that inner awareness. I was kind of, we were talking about this bit before we cut off, actually, and I was saying it's not those kind of muscles really that would be required for to play an instrument like that. You don't need them, but muscle memory. It's that's the real kind of trick to playing an instrument like that, I think. Though if you're, I'll say that if you're playing on stage for 2 hours, it's a bit sore on your hands and stuff like that. It depends on the instrument, doesn't it, and how busy you are. Oh dear. Ghanima tapped her foot impatiently, unaware that she matched the rhythm of her brother's playing. So, setting his mouth in a grimace of concentration, Leto broke from the familiar music and tried a song more ancient than any even Gurney had played. And we're told this: it had been old when Fremen had migrated to their fifth planet. The words echoed a Zen Sunni theme, and he heard them in his memory while his fingers elicited a faltering version of the tune. And we've got the ancient song. I'll come to that in a wee second. We've got the fifth planet here. I think we did this in Dune, in the Dune book club, but we made a list of the Fremen migrations as best we could. And I just sort of took this opportunity that there's one more in this book. And I was trying to figure out what is the fifth planet, and I'm not sure. And I can run it through with you if you like, folks. The Nilotic Al Urubra, if I'm saying that correctly, is the original kind of civilization that they emerged from on Earth, and I think there's terms there to do with its relation to the Nile Valley, I think. And then we have the planet that's the Fremen consider their first planet of origin, if you like, which you would have to consider the first planet in terms of migrations would be Poratrin. From there, they go to Silius Secundus. Then they go to Bela Tejas. And then the next two, I'm not too sure in what order they would come in. The sixth step. So let's see, the steps on the Zen Sunni wanderers, the different planets are: number one, Poratrin. The second is Silius Secundus. Third is Bela Tejas. The sixth is Harmonthep, and the Arrakis is the seventh. So the two that I'm confused about are the fourth and fifth ones. We're talking about the fifth planet here. I'm not really too sure what word they mean. We've got two candidates. One is Rossack, which is mentioned a couple of times. The other one will get mentioned in Children of Dune. On my copy would be page 113 of this one, chapter 17. But I'll jump to where the epigraphs are, actually, to give you a better idea, just for people with different books. Excuse me. Hang on, maybe it's not on page 113, is it? Hang on a second. Was that? Have I written down the chapters? I've written down chapter 17. Bear with me a second. Oh, bear with me. I'll check that for you, folks. I think I've been out of that. I think I've got distracted and written down the wrong thing. That's what I've got written down here. Hang on, and I can't see it in front of me. We're looking for third grade. I'll check that for next time. I'll have to fix that. I think it's at it's into chapter 17 somewhere. Let me just see. Bear with me one wee second. That's looking chapter. No, I'm going to double check that, folks. But it's jump. I found it earlier, actually. I must have, but I've definitely written down the wrong page. I'll look into that. But it's a place called Thurgrod. But basically, you're told that the Fremen flee from Bela Tejas, and that they head to different planets such as Rossack and Harmonthep. We'll get a mention of Thurgrod later on in this book here. Oh, so wonder did I wonder did I accidentally swap the numbers? No, not likely. Sorry, that's just dead air, folks. I'll find that for you for next time. That's me. I must have got distracted. Hang on. Make a wee note around this to fix it. But as I said, it's in terms of the planets of, not that it's particularly important, just for those who want to kind of look into it. this kind of thing. The order of the planets, we don't know of which planet is fourth and which planet is fifth on the migrations of the Zen Sunni wanderers, if you like. First is Parton, second Seleucus Secundus, well named, third Beluteges, and at that point they flee from there and they go to different planets. But we have Rossack and Thurgrod, it is Thurgrod. That's the planet that I've messed up the reference for. The sixth planet they go to is Harmonthep, and then Arrakis is considered the seventh one. So their fifth planet in terms of this was old when the Fremen had migrated to their fifth planet. So when I was just trying to figure out, get a place on it. So here is this ancient song. Let me just get back to where we were in the book there. There we are. There we are. Right. Nature's beauteous form contains a lovely essence. Called by some decay, by this lovely presence, new life finds its way. Tears shed silently are but water of the soul. They bring new life to the pain of being, a separation from that seeing which death makes whole. And there we go. It's an ecological song, isn't it? In a sense. And what I've written next to this is, as I was writing these notes, is that this is to do with green in the books. The color green represents what we're talking about in this song. You'll find it throughout the story. That kind of there's a life in death, if you see what I mean. Nature's beauteous form contains a lovely essence, called by some decay. So things break down and make into new forms, if you like. By this lovely presence, new life finds its way. Tears shed silently about water of the soul. They bring new life to the pain of being, a separation from that saying which death makes whole. So, yes, indeed, a sort of discussion of death and decay and how new life forms out of the old, if you like. I put down that this song will be a wee joke here, one for Colossus to play. But also the wee note here is just that this would be off this kind of thing that we're talking about here. The idea of decay here within that life from death is often represented by the color green in the books. I'm going to see a bit of it, I suppose, in this chapter. Ghanima spoke quickly as he strummed the final note. There's a mucky old song. Why that one? Because it fits. Will you play it for Gurney? Perhaps. He'll call it moody nonsense. I know. And what we're getting here, really, this is the separation, really, if you like. If we consider these two kids almost as one, that's what we're going to start to get here. Carlos says, and he wouldn't have had the necessary callus required to play either. You get bloody fingers quickly. Oh, calluses. Different, I suppose, get different ones for see, mine aren't great at the minute, yeah. But I've not been on the guitar for a couple of weeks, but my left hand ones are kind of permanent. But the right, I play bass with my fingers, and the calluses get pretty pretty tough, But there's always a point. I don't know if you know the Carlos, but you can catch them, especially if you're playing bass, and they just fly off. And they leave you, if that happens, they leave you with you might have 3 well calloused fingers here, but it leaves you with baby smooth skin, which is just agony on the strings, and you'll bleed like a bugger on it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I'd say you get pretty good calluses with an instrument like the balisette. But yeah, no, it just sort of kind of struck me. I think I might have got to this before we got booted before. But in terms of kids playing instruments and stuff like that, you'd be surprised. Well, I wouldn't, I suppose, but maybe Frank would. But the idea of kids not being able to, play an instrument well, YouTube's great for that. You'll see kids playing guitar and bass and all sorts of things that's just beyond anything. There's a lot of what's the term, wonderkids out there these days. But an awful lot of my students are often taking musical classes and stuff like that. There's a lot of them are learn instruments, etc., etc. which is in fact quite, yeah, I'm quite surprised. It's pretty good actually within education. A lot of my students are coming in. I would ask them about music. It's a way of kind of getting them to relate to maths, this kind of thing. But a lot of them play instruments, which is a good thing. Mm. So Leto peered back over his shoulder at Ghanima. There was no surprise in him that she knew the song and its lyrics, but he felt a sudden onset of awe at the singleness of their twin lives. One of them could die and yet remain alive in the other's consciousness, every shared memory intact. They were that close. And I sort of wrote a wee question about this. Pardon me, is he being metaphorical here? Is this true? And I realized that no, it's like the other. That's not what he means here. It's simply that they're that close that they're always together. See and do together is pretty much the same set of memories. You could just consider them from the left or the right. It's that implication that they're that close. And we're going to see that that's going to start to change a wee bit. He found, and we've got fear here for Leto. He found himself frightened by the timeless web of that closeness, broke his gaze away from her. The web contained gaps he knew. His fear arose from the newest of those gaps. He felt their lives beginning to separate and wondered, how can I tell her of this thing which has happened only to me? Um, I scribbled a couple of wee thoughts down here as well because I was wanting to start asking a bit about them. I've been thinking a wee bit about them more and more. The web contains gaps. He knew. The question I wrote down is the fictional third person omniscient author unreliable? I was always asking about the author here, um, in relation to the characters, because particularly within this book we've had some unreliable things, and I suppose the other question is it one third person omniscient narrator for the whole thing, or is there more than one for the different books, if you like? It's something that always kind of something to speculate on, if you like, that I kind of enjoy wondering about, and there'll be no answer to it. Interestingly enough, that's why it's fun to speculate on, Pardon me. But sometimes it's the gaps in knowledge, or also how things distort through time. And can we consider it deliberate or accidental? Is it an accident in the writing process of the author? Not this, but some of the examples that we've looked at, just simply that can occur from writing such a long and dense story. Now, where were we? But yeah, how can I tell her of the thing which has happened only to me? Um, how does he know if he hasn't talked to her? How does he know it's not happening to her? I suppose that's the question I was asking. Pardon me. And I've also written down that this mirrors Paul and Alia, and to a degree Paul and Shani, I think, and also Leto and Jessica is where I went with this. Just the reiteration of things within the Dune series. We have a character who's going to withhold information, if you like, from another character. And I suppose all the wanderings, and it's all the wanderings that the different characters have. This change, this shift between these two who are so close, they're ultimately going to go down a different path, but I suppose they're going to remain close. They're going to separate in the book, but they're going to come back together. And Leto and Ghanima's relationship, as it's put here, um, in Leto's thoughts, he's in awe at the singleness of their twin lives. Excuse me, folks, I'm going to sneeze. Oh. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Sneezing my head off there. Ah. Goodness gracious me. Apologies, I'm back. As I say, I'm still not 100%. Pardon me. Sorry about that. That was quite good. I got to the mute button just in time. Zach Armstrong saying hi. Sorry, Zach. I had a bout. I started sneezing there. Of course, saying bienvenido. Is that? I don't know how to pronounce that. Bienvenido. Bienvenido. Zach. Sorry, Carlos. Oh dear. But there we are. So apologies. Where were we, folks? Oh yes. How can I tell her this thing which has happened only to me? It's just first of all, how does he know if it's only happening to him if he hasn't talked to her? I suppose that's kind of where I went with. That was the question I had in my head, and also that this kind of not that things kind of change. Something happens and it ends up where we have a male character not talking to a female character, keeping something secret, if you like. With Leto and Jessica, it's the whole kind of plan to discredit Jessica, and that Leto really knows it's not her, but he doesn't tell her, this kind of thing. And with Paul and Alia, it's that change in Dune Messiah where she realizes that she's not keeping up with him in terms of the prescient visions, etc., which kind of leads to many of our problems now. So it's just, we were mentioning that just in terms of the reiteration of themes and ideas within the Dune series, and just little motifs and actions that the characters go through. I think that's in part to do with sort of the design of the story, structurally by Frank, and it's also, I think, very much to kind of how would we put it? Be similar in construction to the actual Atreides family themselves in history and myth. That reiteration of violence and intrigue, etc., between within the one family. And again, we've already seen that within this Children of Dune already, but we've got that the Atreides are turning on each other to a degree with Alia and Jessica at the very least, and the twins involved here. Right, sorry about that. The sneezing got me there. So he peered out over the desert, seeing the deep shadows behind the Barracans. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, it sounds very Scottish, doesn't it? Those high crescent-shaped migratory dunes which move like waves around Arrakis. We're getting a wee bit of an ecology lesson. A Barracan is I don't know why, but it looks like a very Scottish word. It just reminds me of Buchanan or something like that. This is a word that Herbert's changed. These are actually Barcans. Pardon me, or Barcan dunes. Now, I've actually gone to the trouble of doing a wee diagram of these here. There you go. That's what we got. This off Wikipedia. If anybody wants to look them up, it's Barchan or Barkhan, Barcan dune. Are crescent-shaped dunes, and the phrase was coined by Alexander von Middendorf. So that's basically the construction of the what you've got within that is the construction of the dune itself, if you like. The fact that they move. Let me tell you what. Let me just bring this up on Wikipedia rather than me. Right. Let's see. No, that's not what we want. There we are. So you'll find it on Wikipedia, for example, under Barchan, Barchan. Barchan or Barcan dune is a crescent-shaped dune. The term's coined in 1881 by Russian naturalist Alexander von Middendorf, based on their occurrence in Turkestan and other inland desert regions. Barcans face the wind, appearing convex, and are produced by wind action predominantly from one direction. They are a very common landform in sandy deserts all over the world and are arc-shaped, marked asymmetrical in cross-section, with a gentle slope facing toward the wind sand ridge comprising well-sorted sand. Just as says, the type of dune possesses two horns that face downward, with a steeper slope known as the slip face, facing away from the wind at the angle of repose of the sand in question, approximately 30 to 35 degrees for medium fine dry sand. There we go. That's good, precise science, isn't it? The upwind side is packed by the wind, stands about 15 degrees. They can be 9 to 30 meters in height and 370 meters wide at the base measurement perpendicular to the wind. So there you go. You know, Frank has sent us a little. And there you go. I went to school there and did my little diagram, just for my own benefit as well. So I am always learning here as well, folks. You know. And there's Julian Thompson saying, hi everybody. Hi Julian, how you doing? Oh, where are we? Julian, I haven't got around to reading it, but thank you very much. And I haven't been near the computer because I've been quite ill, but I have to chuck you a wee email and say hi. But thanks very much for this. And I'll get back to you as soon as I've got it. But I can't. I'm very difficult. Find it quite difficult to read long things on the screen. So the wife got these printed out for me the other day. And I meant to say, along with, by the way, Cynthia, from Semiramis of Babylon to Semiramis of Hammersmith by Julia M. Asher Grieve. I got that printed too. So I'm hopefully going to get both of these read this weekend. But thank you very much. It's good to have you here, Julia. Carlos is telling me it means welcome. And I figured that one, Carlos, but I was trying to pronounce it properly without making a mess of it. But there we go. So yeah, Julian's doing some work, folks, on Dune. What's your Frank Herbert and the Greeks, Tragedy, Philosophy, and Myth in the Dune series for his master's thesis. So good luck with that, Julian. And I'll chuck you an email. I'll have to let folks know actually about sort of times for hooking up on Zoom, for example. I've got myself a set week. In terms of work now, so on certain times, so I now know when I'm going to be available. So we'll have to let you all know, folks. But yeah, it's good to see you here. And Carl's saying, I grew up on the Texas coast after a good storm. The entire landscape changes. It's been very, I don't know, our weather here at the moment is very blustery. But do you know what occurred to me, Carlos? Actually, I was saying this to my wife the other day, is that I'm sitting here scribbling down this, and as much as plenty of dunes and beaches here in Ireland and stuff, I said to her, you know something, I'm sitting trying to educate and do these kind of science fiction books with all these folks, and I'm mentioning all this stuff about deserts and stuff, and I do not live in a desert culture, but I've actually, I'm sure, America and Australia and out in the Middle East, all sorts of places. A lot of you are quite familiar, probably, with deserts. And that it was just the irony of that was just making me feel a bit daft. Just thought it was funny. But there you go. We're told, haven't got around to reading it, Julian, but no worries. I'll certainly enjoy reading. I'll if I can get through it, so I'll send you some pointers or anything if you like. But not to worry. I know it's rough drafts, but thank you. I much appreciate you sending me it. And good luck with getting it completed. Goodness, what am I looking for? There we go. But yes, indeed, good to have you here, sir. Yeah, that was the bit that was just making me giggle. I'm scribbling this stuff down about Dunes. I'm learning a bit about it, as always with this book club. I learn as much as I think as you guys do, and hopefully I learn plenty, and then I just kind of pass it on. I think that's the way it works. But it just occurred to me, and I'm probably just you're a lot of you are probably quite familiar with this stuff, I've never seen a desert with my own eyes. That'll be interesting. It's just very wet and very green here, So we're told this was so just jumping back to that there quickly. He peered out over the desert, seeing the deep shadows behind the barricades, those high crescent-shaped migratory dunes which moved like waves around Arrakis. It was Kadam, the inner desert, and its dunes were rarely marked these days by the irregularities of a giant worm's progress. So few worms in the area. Sunset drew bloody streaks over the dunes, imparting a fiery light to the shadow edges. Kind of bloody effect, if you like, there, perhaps a bit ominous. And what we've got here is something, oddly enough, Julian, we're just talking about the Greeks. Here we go. We have a hawk falling from the crimson sky captured his awareness as it captured a rock partridge in flight. Um, Directly beneath him on the desert floor, plants grew in a profusion of greens, watered by a quannet which flowed partly in the open, partly in covered tunnels. The water came from giant wind trap collectors behind him on the highest point of rock. The green flag of the Atreides flew openly there. Water and green. The new symbols of Arrakis, water and green. There we go. Now, just the hawk and the partridge, I just went, well, that in terms of the Greeks and all of that stuff, and ornithomancy is a bit of a different thing here, but often with the birds, and particularly the ornithopters and their association with green. But a hawk is an eagle here, pretty much. And this is kind of interesting, I suppose. But we have a bird hunting another bird, and I've written here a few worms, and then I've written this is an omen. But what is its meaning? Who's the hawk, or who or what is the hawk? Who or what is the partridge, if you like? And I was wondering, just about bear with me a wee second here. I wonder, did I bookmark these things here today? Well, I bookmarked a few things. Let's Jacurutu. We'll get there. No, maybe not. I was thinking of something else. But the hawk definitely is the Atreides. And is it Leto itself that it represents, or the Atreides in general? Falling from the crimson sky, captured his awareness as it captured a rock partridge in flight. Now, I've written next to this, see Daedalus and Talos for the first partridge. So the hawk, I would take the kind of the eagle association with it, and that's often a representation of Zeus or divine power, this kind of thing. But Daedalus and Talos, this is interesting. I think we've discussed Daedalus and Talos before. Now, hang on a second. I think I bookmarked this. Dune, let's see. Maybe I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay, I'll just have to have a look. Let's see. Now, for those who don't know, Daedalus is the Daedalus from Partridge. There we go. Let's have a look. Cultural references. There we go. Daedalus in Greek mythology is the great inventor hero, if you like. Whenever the Edisonian hero was defined in terms of a science fiction hero, the people who did so were very careful to say, not like Daedalus. So not like this inventor hero from Greek mythology, who most likely was possibly a real person. But Daedalus, from the stories, I suppose, the association with the Minotaur and the labyrinth, etc. But in particular, I suppose him and his son Icarus and their wings. And Daedalus warning his son not to fly too close to the sun. This story is to do with the partridge, if you like. But Daedalus had an apprentice whom he murdered. And that apprentice was called Talos. Not to be confused with the giant bronze statue. There we go, Talos. And just to have a wee note, it says, this is off Wikipedia, according to Greek legend, the first partridge appeared when Daedalus threw his apprentice Talos off the sacred hill of Athena in a fit of jealous rage. Supposedly mindful of his fall, the bird does not build its nest in the trees nor take lofty flights and avoids high places, which is kind of interesting. There's some more stuff there that's to do with the partridge as well. Interesting, is a symbol of nationalism within the Kurds. What it says about the Iraqis generally regard the palm tree, the falcon, and the sword as their national symbols. The Kurds consider the oak, the partridge, and the dagger as theirs. There we go. But yes, they build their nests on land. Excuse me. Do not build its nests in trees, nor take lofty flights and avoid high places because they witnessed the murder of Talos. That's kind of a good one, isn't it? I like that story. There we are. So they say Mars also has Barkan dunes as captured by the long orbiting Mars reconnaissance orbiter. Yeah, dunes on other planets. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, as I said, I don't know. Whenever I had a word I don't know anything about, I scribble it down, and I actually like the diagram so much on Wikipedia that I kind of drew it in here. But it's nice to learn stuff. We got, but yeah, I suppose that the main dunes that we encounter here is just our beaches in Ireland. They're not exactly summer beaches. Some of them are good for surfing. I understand, but you will get those big spiky barrier grasses and stuff on them. But our beaches aren't great, I think. you know, but everything's wee here, something. Everything's small scale, except for the amount of rain and the amount of greenness, I suppose. But there you go. But yes, just interpreting that meaning as that's kind of I'm wondering what it means. This thing that draws Paul Leto's attention. Sorry, the hawk falling from the crimson sky captured his awareness as it captured a rock partridge. I was kind of associating partridges as a bird also with royalty. But there's something. I'm not too sure what it's trying to say. I went with the hawk as the Atreides. The partridge builds its nest on land. Not too sure who it would refer to or what. Possibly I was thinking on Farad'n. And there's something about, isn't it, that Leto later on will say he'll tame Farad'n like a pet falcon or something. If I can't remember. Well, we'll have to get to it. I suppose. Long time. I seem to remember quoting that at some point. So there we go, folks. So as I was just curious, it's we get quite a few of these. There's enough of these kind of little presentations of hawks and things like that. With the great hawks and snakes, this kind of thing. But yeah, they're considered omens. Let me see. So the new symbols of Arrakis are water and green. And I suppose, why is he telling us a wee bit about these moving dunes? We're told a diamond-shaped oasis of planted dunes spread beneath his high perch, focusing his attention into sharp Fremen awareness. So this isn't. We often get, I suppose, within likes of Jessica, etc. That sharpening focus, etc. But with the Bene Gesserit awareness, this is a Fremen awareness. The bell call of a night bird came from the cliff below him, and it amplified the sensation that he lived this moment out of a wild past. And we get Leto's thoughts here. I wonder if we've got any French speakers here. Nous avons changé tout cela, he thought, falling easily into one of the ancient tongues which he and Ghanima employed in private. We have altered all of that. Yeah, we've changed all that. He said, oublier je ne puis, I cannot forget. And he's translated it for us. I didn't think that was particularly good French. That's why I'm kind of wondering, is there anybody who speaks good French? Mine's je parle un peu français. Not much. I would have went with je ne peux pas oublier. But I cannot forget. We have altered all of that. I cannot forget, is what he's saying. If we have changed all that, I cannot forget. It's the translation. There we go. Sacre bleu. I love how the French swear. I almost sometimes collect swear words in different languages, but I really enjoy the way the French swear. It's quite colorful. That sacre bleu, mon Dieu, mad. That kind of, it's just, it's good. So his thoughts, we have altered all of this, we've changed all of this. I cannot forget, and that's the other memory of what Arrakis used to be. Beyond the oasis, we're told he could see in this failing light the Fremen land the Fremen called the emptiness. Sorry, the emptiness, the land where nothing grows. Is that did I accidentally repeat a word there? Land where nothing grows. All right, sorry. Let me just check out. In this feeling like the land Fremen call. Yeah, that's me. There we go. Apologies. The land Fremen call the emptiness. The land where nothing grows. The land never fertile. Never fertile. Yeah. Water. Yeah. So water and the great ecological plan. We're changing that. So what was this place called the emptiness? That you could never grow anything in. Water and the great ecological plan. We're changing that. There were places now in Arrakis where one could see the plush green velvet of forested hills. Forests on Arrakis. Some in the new generation found it difficult to imagine dunes beneath those undulant green hills. To someone who's been doodling little desert things and all sorts of things within this book, and especially when I've got images of worms, it's actually a profound shift to actually have to draw in some green stuff, just for, within the colours of these books. It's just a bit odd, I thought. I'm all let me see, just to give you an example, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I suppose I did a wee bit of that at the start. Each of these books has a wee kind of thing, and I popped in the kind of bit of green valley and river encroaching. But up until this point, each of these wee notebooks has kind of got a wee just a doodle by me about the book, but it includes a worm and an Arrakis, pretty much. Where are we? Right, sorry folks. Now, so the great ecological plan and water, hand in hand. Goodness gracious me. Yes, I've written something at the top of the page here, and it's kind of a facepalm moment for me. I suppose as you read books, when you study books, you're only really aware of what else you've read. And you may have heard, oh, such and such a person got their idea from this or that or the other. But whenever I read that today, let me see if I can get it for you here. Bear with me a second. What the Fremen and their ecological plan and everything about them and everything about this book, the series of books so far, whenever I just sort of was thinking about this, and it's their plan, and what does it remind you on? And I've written down this, it reminds me on the King of Elfland's daughter again. And I would say that Chani bears a strong resemblance to the King of Elfland's daughter, but how would I put this? What would the Fremen remind you on? The Fremen would remind you of the men of Earl. And I suppose the plot of the story of the King of Elfland's daughter evolves around the men of Earl, demanding that their king bring magic into their lives, into their land. And that they're kind of they have this first chapter of it is the plan of the Parliament of Earl. We would be ruled by a magic lord, this kind of thing, and it just in terms of what the Fremen wanted and so on and so forth, and arguably I suppose the King of Elfland's daughter is a kind of careful what you wish for story, but it works on a lot of different levels. I absolutely adore this book. But it just struck me that there was a strong similarity between essentially what the men of Earl want, their dream for change, and what they get, and be careful what you wish for. And it's maybe just an obscure kind of connection, but it just reminded me strongly of that book. And it's just a thing that occurred to me like literally yesterday. So I wrote it at the top of the page. Kind of King of Elfland's daughter, OMG. Just I think there's a lot of strong associations with them, with the two stories. Could be just a coincidence as well. but yeah, just the Fremen dream, and here it comes. When they're getting it, and it's. I suppose this is the problem that we're going to figure out in this chapter, isn't it? But forests on Arrakis, wow, you know, and again, the difference in a generation or so. We're told to such young eyes, there's no shock value in seeing the flat foliage of rain trees. But Leto found himself thinking now in the old Fremen manner, wary of change, fearful in the presence of the new. Pardon me. He said, "The children tell me they seldom find sand trout here near the surface anymore." And we're getting a little bit of insight into Fremen culture here as well, by the way. What Ghanima says this. What's that supposed to indicate? Ghanima asked. There was petulance in her tone. What's that supposed to indicate? Things are beginning to change very swiftly. Again, the bird chimed in the cliff, and night fell upon the partridge. And again, that reminder of the that had drawn his attention. I was wondering about the bird that chimed, by the way. I wrote this earlier, but forgot to say it. The bell call of the night bird came from the cliff below. In relation to Jacurutu, I was wondering, was this bird, and I don't think we're going to get told, but I was wondering just as we move into this, is this bird one of these great horned owls? Just quickly back. We were chatting about Daedalus and Taliesin and murdering Taliesin. We talked about it before. Just remembering it because Daedalus had the. Oh goodness, this is a weird one. Daedalus had to sneak the body out of Athens, and as far as I know, if I recall correctly, he was able to do so because of some sort of bylaw that you weren't allowed to leave snakes lying in the street. And what he claimed, he put Talos's body in a bag, I believe. And pretended that it was a bunch of dead snakes or something. We'll have to look at it. Daedalus is a very interesting character. But there you go. That was just that association with the first partridge. But we often get mythical associations with birds. Now, where were we? The children tell me that they seldom find sand trout here near the surface anymore. What's that supposed to indicate? Ghanima asked. There was petulance in her tone. Things are beginning to change very swiftly, he said. Again the bird chimed in the cliff, and the night fell upon the desert as the hawk had fallen upon the partridge. Night often subjected him to an assault of memories, all of those inner lives clamouring for their moment. Ghanima didn't object to this phenomenon in quite the way he did. She knew his disquiet, though, and he felt her hand touch his shoulder in sympathy. So it seems that all the lives, the inner memory lives, the multitude, I think is probably the best way to refer to them, seem to bug the two of them more at night, possibly whenever they're trying to sleep, this kind of thing. Clamoring for their moment, as it's put, all trying to get their moment. Possibly of existence. I don't know. The idea of existing inside someone's inner memory, I feel like it sounds quite hellish. And I was thinking a little bit about that in terms of the Greeks and stuff like that, but it's reminiscent of shades and things like that, if you see what I mean. Your own personal Hades, if you like. But it's a thing in Greek mythology that heroes tend to, how should we put it? As much as they tend to consult oracles and stuff like that. Any pop into the underworld is an opportunity to chat to, if you see what I mean. And Odysseus gets to have a bit of a natter with those in the underworld as well. Now, let's see. So the other thing we're told here is that this assault bothers Leto more than it bothers Ghanima. Or the fact that, well, not that it seems that obviously he considers it an assault, But Ghanima doesn't object to it. Ghanima is more relaxed about that. And again, the differences between the two being male and female here, I suppose, in relation to other memory, and possibly I don't know. It's hard to tell with the two twins. We're going to have to try and figure out their other memory a little bit and what's the same and what's different about them. And we'll get a few clues within this chapter. We're told he struck an angry chord from the balisette. They're all angry chords. It just depends on how you hit them. How could he tell her what was happening to him? And again, I've written down this is the same problem as Paul and Alia and Chani, etc. How could I tell him? This kind of thing. We were discussing that sort of, the level of assumptions that Paul and Chani make by not speaking to each other. And I suppose the interesting thing about it, as much as we go on about it, is what the fundamental thing about that within the characters is, regardless of how prescient or amazing is that it's very human, isn't it? That these are they're not perfect people, they're flawed, and in many ways, as much as the Atreides are masters of propaganda, they're not really that brilliant at personal communication sometimes, are they? Or dealing with their emotions, But here we go. This is a description of Leto's other memory. Within his head were wars, uncounted lives, parceling on their ancient memories, violent accidents, love's languor, the colours of many places and many faces, the buried sorrows. Sorry, I'll do that again. The buried sorrows and leaping joys of multitudes. He heard elegies to springs on planets which no longer existed, green dances and firelight, wails and halloos, a harvest of conversations without number. Just a range of all of the different types of memories within his mind. The assault was hardest to bear at nightfall in the open. Yet here we are at nightfall in the open. And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Does this speak to Leto's character? It's like if you're afraid of going down there's a dark alley ahead, and if you're afraid, then what do? You walk down that dark alley every day to get rid of your fear. I'm wondering, is it that type of thing, that he's facing his fears by confronting them when it's most difficult to deal with? Pardon me. Yes. Have we gotten that wee bit yet? I think we have, haven't we? Let me just see. Yeah, I like that. Cynthia said, night fell upon, just to get back to that, I'll just find it in the book here, Cynthia. Hang on. Let's see. Yeah, night fell upon the... So Cynthia says, night fell upon the desert as the hawk had fallen upon the partridge, recalls a Homeric simile, and suggests an interesting new role for the desert. It is now prey rather than predator. Excellent. Very good. We have hard biographical, this is Julian saying, we have hard biographical evidence that Herbert read Ezra Pound, Shakespeare, Young, Raglan, Alan Watts, and Leslie Blanch. Beyond that, it's some guesswork. I can think of others but have no proof. Absolute proof that he's read, Julian, Herbert's ecological thinking is Paul. I'll type his name in for you. Is this guy Paul Bigelow Sears, isn't it? There we go. He's read him, and I would say that most of his ecological thinking comes from Paul Bigelow Sears. The other thing, Julian, is I caught Frank lying about what he's read and what he hasn't read, and you can put down that he's absolutely read 100%, definitely read Erewhon. And there's a connection between Erewhon and the works of Paul Bigelow Sears. And in fact, the connection is around his definition of ecology. So Frank Herbert's definition of ecology is Bigelow Sears' definition of science, and changed it one word, but he's absolutely read him. Yeah, there is a bit of it. There's a whole chunk of there's some really good audio stuff online, Julian. But yeah, you can tell that he's read X, Y, and Z. But there's a few. There's a the one that bothers me the most about him is that he dodges the butler thing, and I've got the proof of it. I think that caught him in his own lie. There's two different statements he makes in some interviews. I'll look it up to see if I can find the references. They're in the PhD somewhere. Uh, but it's kind of where he pretends he doesn't know where something came from, and yet he absolutely does and admits it. And he pretty much contradicts himself. It's one of those where he gives himself away, but it's in relation to Butler and Sears. But yeah, a lot of Frank's ecological thinking comes from Sears, But yeah, I mean, who knows what you read within a lifetime? I think is he does read, doesn't he? But Frank is big on presenting his ideas as his own, which they isn't always the case. Carlos is saying years and years ago when I first read the book, I thought that Leto and Ghanima would become a Gestalt being in the end. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Carlos. Whenever I read it, whenever I picked up with the God Emperor, with God Emperor, I kind of was expecting, obviously, Ghanima to be at his side almost in many ways, and I like the character of Ghanima quite a lot. And again, it's one of those characters and again, Frank does this quite deliberately, but Ghanima is sort of left behind at a certain point in God Emperor of Dune, But yes, indeed. And it is almost in a sense that they start off like that in a funny kind of way, but there's this separation going on. And what is the separation's probably just, that change. They're both probably heading towards the start of puberty, this kind of thing, physical changes. We get all sorts of changes with the characters in these books, don't we? The physical, the emotional, environmental, and that's just the kind of normal stuff before they kind of, become Kwisatz Haderachs and things like this, But yeah, that's a perfectly good, That's a pretty good idea. Carlos is saying they would be able to see past and future from both male and female perspectives, making them almost omniscient. Yeah, kind of the ultimate kind of Janus kind of creature, isn't it? Really. There's Vanessa saying, stopping by to say hello. Always good to catch you. Thank you very much. Very good to see you. We were supposed to be on. Yeah, we've had a bit of bother getting on last few weeks, but hopefully things are going to sort themselves out. But yeah, it's an interesting one to speculate on about the kind of Leto Ghanima thing. And of course we sort of know what happens in terms of they are married in the end, aren't they? There's an odd relationship between these two. But yeah, I kind of the point where I'm at, Carlos, with it is that once upon a time, if you like, you want to run the thought experiment, is that after possibly having given birth to a few Atreides scions to perpetuate the genetic line, and if the relationship is what it is with Leto and Ghanima, I'm kind of knowing what he's going through. I'm wondering kind of why doesn't she risk, putting on the skin herself and becoming a god empress, if you like. Why doesn't she join him? We do get an explanation. I think it's pretty much one of the last things said in Children of Dune, actually, is why. And again, possibly highlights the differences between the two. But at the start, very much, I like the two. I like the twins together. I think they operate really well together. And we do see a sort of, how they are still very much on the same page here within this chapter. But how could he tell her about what was happening to him? I think easily there's always the answer to these things, and we get a whole range of, hardcore memories that are probably quite full on for a 9-year-old to take in. Again, these kids are going to be grown up inside their heads, aren't they? Although I think we do see a sort of element of them being children within the story as well. But the assault, we're told, all these lives having a go at him is hardest to bear at nightfall in the open. This is exactly the setup of this chapter. It's the start of nightfall in the open. It's almost as if he's provoking the situation or testing his fears. which makes sense with if we understand, the litany against fear and that kind of thing. Shouldn't we be going in? She asked, as Ghanima. He shook his head. No, so that's a no. And she felt the movement, realizing at last that his troubles were went deeper than she had suspected. And we get some Leto's thoughts here. Why do I so often greet the night out here? He asked himself. He did not feel Ghanima withdraw her hand. I suppose I've maybe tried to answer that before before we've got to the character's thoughts on it. I do apologize, but I think that's generally what he's doing. I think he's testing himself here. And Ghanima tells us, I suppose, you know why you torment yourself this way, she said. That's not a question. He heard the gentle chiding in her voice. Yes, he knew. The answer lay there in his awareness, obvious, because the great known unknown within moves me like a wave. Uh-oh. I thought this was he felt the past as though he rode a surfboard. He had his father's time-spread memories of prescience superimposed upon everything else, yet he wanted all of those pasts. He wanted them. So there you go. I was wrong. Perhaps a little bit right that he's testing himself. He wants this. What's motivating him? It's described as the great known unknown, which moves me like a wave. How vague could you get? That's about as vague as you could possibly get. It's funny, we were asked Matthew, my son, once kind of what it was like outside, and he said it was hot, cold, and and myself and my wife, and it's kind of become a thing with us. It's kind of funny, but myself and my wife weren't too sure what to do with that. But it's the great known unknown. It's the great whatever. What does that mean exactly? Which within moves me. It's whatever it is. It moves me like a wave. It's got me going. And I suppose it's the known unknown of all of those lives, all of those memories, if I'm being serious about it. All the things that he knows. And within those memories, I suppose it seems that they have to come to the fore, or you kind of have to spend time interrogating them or to glean things from them, if you like. It's a curious thing to try and figure out how Herbert's other memory works within the Dune series. But he felt the cresting of his past as though he rode a surfboard. And I suppose we get that with that. The analogy, I suppose we're talking about the Barcan dunes, how they move. They're this crescent-shaped dune. You can imagine him surfing that, but moving forward only, if you like, in time. He wants all this. It's not that, oh, this could be dangerous, this could be bad for me. I want this stuff. I want all of this. As it tends to be, this is possibly the moment. This is the genesis, if you like, of a god emperor. I want it. And they were so very dangerous. He knew that completely now with this new thing, which he would have to tell Ghanima. What's the new thing? And it's kind of funny, the known unknown, the thing. It is kind of like, your kid's language, if you like, what was what Matthew said once when he was young? He said, can we go to the thing, and do that? What was it? Can we go to that? What was it? Can we go to that place and do that thing, with the stuff? He asked us once, and no, it absolutely meant nothing to us at all, It's funny. But yeah, it is obviously dangerous. He knows that it's dangerous, and I think, therefore, me suggesting that he's sort of pushing his boundaries a wee bit, I think is bang on, to be honest with you. But it's this desire to have this. The desert was beginning to. So, and again, but he's got to tell Ghanima. The desert was beginning to glow under the rising light of the first moon. He stared out at the false immobility of sand firs reaching into infinity. To his left, in the near distance, lay the Attendant, a rock outcropping which the sandblast winds had reduced to a low a sinuous shape like a dark worm striking through the dunes. Hmm. Someday the rock beneath him would be cut down to such a shape, and Siege Tabar would be no more, except in the memories of someone like himself. He did not doubt that there would be someone like himself. And I think that all of this is particularly interesting. We're going to get this in a minute or two, I suppose, as we get through the chapter. But it smells of prescience, doesn't it? It smells of future memory. And we've got this, the rising of the first moon, again, is often used to represent all sorts of things within the moons, in particular, all sorts of things within Dune. So this attendant, we're going to see, has a bit of significance for them in a moment. But it leads him to see, the eventual, the wind. I suppose it's a bit of an Ozymandias moment for him, isn't it? The wind has laid this rock outcropping just down, whittling it down with the power of the wind. One day, the power of man, most likely. The rock beneath him would be cut down to such a shape, and Siege Tabar would be no more. It's going to be destroyed. It's going to be gone, and only someone like him would remember it. The interesting thing, then, I suppose, is Leto being a bit modest here, when he says he did not doubt that there would be someone like himself. And why not? He did not doubt there would be someone, but it would be him, if you like. And I was wondering, is that meant to mean not himself? And I actually went, no, it's not. If we're a wee bit wise to it, he's not going to be like himself, is he? And I think that's a little bit. I think therefore that statement is self-referential, even though it appears that it's not. If that makes sense. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, then I think that's really clever writing. I quite like it. And the dark worm striking through the dunes as well, that kind of idea. That's what the attendant, it seems like it was, the name suggests, that's the waiter, to attend, to wait, to be watchful, possibly. That it was some like huge pillar, that kind of waited. It was maybe a symbol that you'd arrived home, if you like, this kind of thing. And it's been whittled and whittled down to something that it now looks like a bit of a dark worm striking through the dune, just this thing, It's a dark worm, isn't it? It's the first time we've heard the worm referred to like that, I think. But that one day Siege Tabar will not be here. Ozymandias moment. I was just thinking of the Ozymandias poem, by Shelley and his buddy, the two poems, which are highly problematic and fun to look at. I think. Let's have a look at your comments, folks. Let's see. Carlos is saying they'll be able to see past them. Oh, that's what we were talking about them as being a kind of single gestalt, wasn't it? Past and future, both male and female perspectives, making them almost omniscient. And again, it makes you start to think about Daniel and Marty, doesn't it, Carlos? Valen says, stop by to say hello. Sorry, always cool to catch you live. Just repeating some comments, Valen. It's good to see you too. Carlos says, note the Bene Gesserit can halt their aging. Growing old and dying was a choice Ghanima consciously made. I don't seem. This is the thing, Carlos, about the whole longevity thing and benefits of taking the drug, melange, etc. All sorts of things that nobody. I suppose the best place to get it is from. What would you call it? I suppose the only person that we see really, really long lived in the Dune series is Leto II. But within the appendices of Dune, we get that we get a few notable characters, if you like, and their birth and life, death dates. But no one seems to live massively long, if you like. It's maybe. Get the sense that maybe the oldest people in this universe are maybe about 120, which is oddly enough, and I don't know how old the oldest person in the world is now, but I would say it's around something like that. And it makes them sound no different, really, than us in that sense, Maybe it's Carlos. Maybe it's like many beauty products and all these kind of things that halt the appearance of aging. as opposed to aging. But yeah, growing old and dying is a choice Ghanima consciously made. It reminds you a wee bit on some of the the characters, the elven characters in Lord of the Rings, who give up their immortality for a mortal life. This kind of thing. Julian Thompson said, waves always come up. Herbert uses them to talk about quantum theory and Zen. I think that's also him putting life in Hawaii on the page. I'm glad you said it, Julian. I was wondering about the surfboard, and I was wondering, is that I suppose what I know about surf culture kind of comes from, all of that sort of stuff comes from American movies. And American music, pretty much that kind of Hawaiian thing, which I quite like. Excuse me. Maybe it was the surfboard. The surfboard's got its place in science fiction, doesn't it? Yeah, he likes to go on about. He talks about looking at dunes in the same way as looking at deserts, etc. In the same way as looking at fluid dynamics, this kind of thing. It's something it's one of the first things that got him into the whole Dune thing. I was quite interested about it. Zen, I think there's also put Life in Hawaii on the page. Yeah, he bought a gaff there, didn't he? But yeah, I thought of all the. He felt the cresting of his past as though he rode a surfboard. And I was just thinking, well, he could only have come up with that. That sort of simile, as if out of other memory, where has Leto encountered a surfboard? Unless Julian putting Hawaii on the page, as you might suggest, unless do we have Fremen surfing now? Is there all sorts of like water park activities and seaside activities going on Arrakis these days? I don't know. You could, I don't know. You could really take it to all sorts of places, couldn't you? Within the Imperium and the Fremen having their place, you could imagine mass holidays to water worlds. I think they would be loving it. But I would certainly, I suppose we'll get a wee chat about it, how water is perceived as we go on here. But there's a desire for this thing, I think, as well, that's quite important. But yeah, he did not doubt that there would be someone like himself. If it's prescience, then if he is prescient, he knows it's going to be himself. And I think that's what's very clever about that line. But someone like himself, it's going to be him, but it's not. He will have changed, Why are you staring at the attendant? Ghanima asked. He shrugged. In defiance of their guardian's orders, he and Ghanima often went to the attendant. They had discovered a secret hiding place there, and Leto knew now why that place lured him. Beneath him, its distance foreshortened by darkness, an open stretch of quiet gleamed in moonlight. Its surface rippled with movements of predator fish, which Fremen always planted in their stored water to keep out the sand trout. I stand between fish and worm, he murmured. What? He repeated it louder. I'll do that. I stand between fish and worm. It's not in the book, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. She put a hand to her mouth, beginning to suspect the thing which moved him. His father had acted thus. She had but to peer inward and compare. The other memory, and check out Paul's other memory, basically. So we've had different names for it over the years. The Great Unknown is, I suppose, comparable with Paul's terrible purpose. How do you give a name to something that you're not too sure what it is? In this case, I suppose he has other memory to give it a name. But it's interesting. So, Leto, we're going to get a wee bit of an... here we go with the ecological lessons for Arrakis, I suppose. Carlos, thank you very much. Duncan notices Alia has stopped the aging process. Carlos saying, yes, the Bene Gesserit. Here we go. Cynthia saying, Carlos, yes, the Bene Gesserit made this taboo amongst themselves because they knew it would bring down enmity from everyone else. They age to protect themselves through the generations. That's interesting, Cynthia. I thought what you're both sort of saying there, I didn't realize this, makes the whole arrival of Jessica much more funnier, I think. The fact that, but yeah, so what Alia has stopped the aging process would be something that would be seen as taboo by the Bene Gesserit. Very good. Um, I thought Jessica's responses to Alia and Irulan's appearance, I thought was very funny and in many ways very real. You know, it's made me think a wee bit more about just in terms of what's been done to the Dune movie, etc. But there's one thing I like to point out quite a lot. I'm sure I've done it many times, but whenever it comes to our female characters within Dune, um, the importance of Bev Herbert and her hand in them, I think, is huge. You know, I would argue it's probably just Frank's way they behave and how they're motivated that helps a lot. I think with Frank's writing of the female characters, but I thought that scene was absolutely brilliant. And I was, but that it totally changes that scene and how I go back. I must go back and reread it, thinking about this. But yeah, just when Jessica's entrance, I think is brilliant. I think it's very funny, and all of that's in her head as well. We're not, but just the general disgust at how good Ali and Irulan look, I think, I found it brilliant. I thought very very well written, very very real in some ways. I suppose for a woman like Jessica, I think it just really fleshes her character out. Little nuances like that, but not necessary at all for the story or anything. Just really helping to develop her character, and I actually thought made you, in part, made you quite sympathetic towards Jessica as well. If you like, with this next generation of women, um, I suppose in the next generation of Benny Gesserit, let's have a wee look. So I stand between fish and worm is where we're at. He's been looking down at the predator fish. So off we go. She's starting to suspect here. Daddy acted this way. She knows it's in the memories, etc. So let's see. Leto shuddered, we're told. Memories which fastened him to places his flesh had never known, presented him with answers to questions he had not asked. So that sounds very intrusive, isn't it? He saw relationships and unfolding events against a gigantic inner screen. The sandworm of Dune would not cross water. Water poisoned it. Yet, and here we go. Yet water had been here in prehistoric times, while gypsum pans attested to bygone lakes and seas. Pardon me. There's been a little bit of ecological criticism of Frank Herbert, and you'll find this in my chapter on the ecology of the major theme of ecology within the PhD. One of them was that, and it was a sort of thing that they hadn't really paid attention to. So one of the problems when providing criticism of of the Dune series, is that it's ridiculously difficult to do unless you can consider the whole thing. At the very least, if you don't want to consider all 6 books, you have to consider the first 3 together, because again, we've mentioned this several times, particularly since we've started Messiah and Children of Dune, is that parts of books of Dune Messiah and Children of Dune are written at the same time as Dune, and to create that long-term narrative where things have to you need to do your planning at the beginning. You can't just start writing something like this and hope that all the little tales and things, all the little threads will kind of just work themselves out. And if you see with Frank that he's very good at putting these all together, and it's but it's very hard to untease one thread from the others. It works really well, and he does leave little threads hanging, and just um, and the part of the fun of that, the joy of that, is it lets you wonder and lets you think about it, not giving you all the answers. And I think it's one of the things that brings us back to books like this. But the criticism in particular was from an ecological point of view, and it was pointing out that a planet like Dune would needed to have had water, and here it is. So because the criticism of that, like, I'll have to look it up. Actually, I can't remember who it was. The criticism was aimed only at the first Dune novel. This information here kind of changes that, if you like. So water, this we're starting to, and again, you don't get the full story of Dune. In Dune, you don't get the full story of the worms. You have to get all of that information as you go throughout the books and kind of piece it together, if you like. So here we have that this desert world once had water in prehistoric times, whatever that means. While gypsum pans attested to bygone lakes and seas. So the place was covered in water. Wells, deep drilled, found water which sand trout had sealed off. As clearly as if he'd witnessed the events, he saw what had happened on this planet, and it filled him with foreboding for the cataclysmic changes which human intervention was bringing. His voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I know what happened, Ghanima." She bent close to him. "Yes?" "The sand trout." He fell silent, and she wondered why he kept referring to the haploid phase of the planet's giant sandworm, but she dared not prod him. And I wrote, why not? And the reason why I asked why not is that having seen her in having seen having seen Ghanima deal with Alia earlier, and she absolutely provokes and prods and pokes, and is the instigator of that, and doesn't seem to be too worried about it. So if she was prepared to do it to Alia, I can't see why she's not prepared just to sort of prod her brother a little bit to figure out what he's saying. And it's maybe because that she knows him well enough that he'll reveal what I suppose what she wants to know anyway, I suppose. Haploid, then, the haploid phase of the planet's giant sandworm. We're going to get a lot of info on the worms here. Haploid is to do with cells. And so in terms of the worm, haploid refers to cells that have a single set of chromosomes. The term diploid, for example, refers to cells that have two sets of chromosomes. And feel free to look up those terms. Learn an awful lot about all that stuff. Loads of it. I suppose the point we make here is that the worm is an animal-plant hybrid that goes through a life cycle. Its life cycle is very similar to the lamprey, the sea lamprey. In reference to, and it's a thing that we do find out that the worm is a plant animal hybrid of some kind, and that it was created in a lab, most likely. I'm not too sure where we find that out, but we will find it out, quite possibly in this book. And that it goes through obviously different phases, etc., etc. Why did he keep referring to the haploid phase of the planet's giant sandworm, but she dared not prod? So this is the sand trout that we're talking about. That becomes another way of referring to it. So it's just in terms of its cells. And I suppose what I'm thinking is that at the point of transformation from sand trout to sandworm, does the worm go from a haploid type creature to a diploid type creature, if you see what I mean? Is it something to do with the process of change between plant and animal, or some kind of hybridized thing? It doesn't really tell us much, but just that's what this phase of the animal, if you like, is where its cells have it's got a single set of chromosomes. I'm assuming something must change for it to become the giant sandworm, I suppose. Let's have a wee look. What do we got? Bob said he'd have memories of Valadanian oceans. Didn't Paul Valadanian oceans? I'm not familiar with the term. Can you let me know a wee bit more about that, Babs? I'm not too sure what you mean. Valadanian. Valadan. Is it Caledonian? Is it a V's next to C? I think I've got you, Babs. He'd have memories of Caledonian oceans. Yeah, got you. Yes, he would, I suppose. Yeah, from his father. Yeah. Didn't Paul already know that the end of the worms must mean the end of the spice? Yeah. So what is new here? Is Leto thinking about some new danger of unleashing the fossil aquifers in the ground? And Carla says, was it ever revealed that the adult worms actually ate? It doesn't make sense to me that a subterranean life form would be photosynthetic. Oh, good golly. I think we'll get there with it, Carlos. I've got a diagram somewhere. I'll dig it up and see what it says on it. It's been a long time since I looked at it. I keep posting it. But the thing that I was working on was really just to figure out its life cycle. But what do they eat? I have no idea. They fart oxygen. That's what we do now. Maybe it's just sand. Somehow that they take in the sand and various things within it, and just they seem to gobble down all sorts of like vehicles and things. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this much, Carlos. If it's in the Dune books, we'll figure it out. We'll find it. Back to you, Cynthia. Doesn't Paul already know that the end of the worms meant the end of the spice? Yeah, I've got it. The whole basis of the threat from Dune is, he that can destroy a thing can, he that can control a thing can, he that can destroy a thing controls a thing. So that was always the threat. What is new here? What's new is, I think, that that's someone threatening to do it deliberately. This is where it's happening unintentionally, I think, as a consequence of the Atreides' actions. It's not intentional. Is Leto thinking about some new danger of unleashing the fossil aquifers in the ground? See, this is the thing, I suppose, with Paul's prescience. Where did it go? What did he see? What, this kind of thing. And we have to start asking the same thing about Leto here, Is he thinking about some new danger here? I don't know. I suppose we're going to get it explained here anyway, I see, but I'm not too sure. Might there be a fungaloid element considering the enzyme balance in Leto? I'd hand that one over to someone more qualified, Julia, to ask. Who knows? I'll tell you what, just for next time, just because I'm just getting back on my feet, we'll maybe have a wee nosy at what we can find out within. I suppose we could grab the Dune Encyclopedia and try and find out a wee bit about it. But this is we are starting. Whenever I got the life cycle of the worms, I think it needed all 6 books to get the complete life cycle, if you like, the different stages. And even within the books, he sometimes refers to different aspects of the life cycle, I think, in different ways. If you see what I mean, So you're unleashing the fossil aquifers in the ground. So I'm not, in answer to your question, Carlos, I'm not too sure. And there's a lot that doesn't quite make sense. photosynthetic. Yeah, the subterranean life form would be photosynthetic, but they do come to the surface. Fungiloid element, considering the enzyme balance. Quite possibly, Julian. I'm just trying to get my old brain into gear rather than pass the buck on that one, because I don't know too much about things like that. But I would understanding the way let me look up the fungus. What's the word I'm looking for? Let's see. Eukaryotic organisms that include microorganisms such as yeasts and molds, as well as the traditional eukaryotic kingdoms, along with animal plantae and either protista or protozoa or chromista. Right, let's see. But yeah, I suppose the way I was thinking about it, fungi are the principal decomposers in the ecological system. God, I love mushrooms. Mushrooms are my favorite food, by the way. The humble table mushroom and the button mushroom, I love them boiled. It's my absolute love mushrooms in all shapes and forms. But because the amount of those kind of structures that the fungus, etc., fungiloid will go with, underground, this kind of thing. I've seen some stuff on it, Julian, but I don't have the vocabulary to talk intelligently about it. A biologist spoke to this in the Science of June. I don't have my text on me at the moment. Let's have a wee look. Oh, my God, there it is. Oh. I remember somebody being particularly critical. The bit that they couldn't believe. This one, I think it was it. Well, the whole oxygen created by worms farting. Pardon me. Let me see. Biology of the sand. Do you know what article it was? I've got one. Let's see. Got one here on melange and one on the biology of the sandworm, I'm guessing. Let's have a wee look. Sybil Hetchell, PhD. Let's have a wee nosy. Probably could do with having a good read through these. Again, it's been a long time since I read these. I suppose that's the quote. What Kine says, how strange that so few people ever looked up from the spice long enough to wonder at the near ideal nitrogen oxygen CO2 balance. In the absence of plant cover, something occupies that gap. I knew the little maker was there deep in the sand long before I ever saw it. Let's see. Least-based oxygen, right. From the carbon dioxide, which is two oxygens from carbon, into the atmosphere, providing us with the air we breathe. Scientists postulate the early atmosphere consisted primarily of CO2 and methane until the advent of photosynthetic plants that convert CO2 into free oxygen. I'll tell you what, this is a bit lengthier than I thought, but I'll have a wee nosy at it for next time, Julian, and see if we can get anything interesting to natter out of it. But this is quite a detailed little speculation on the worms, I think. I'll have to have a nosy at it. Looks quite good, actually. Question of what produces the spice and generates oxygen remains vexing. It's just at the back of this. On Earth, all oxygen production stems from plants, single-celled organisms like algae, and photosynthetic or chemosynthetic bacteria. No animal produces oxygen. Herbert states in the appendix that even Shai Hulud had a place in the charts. His inner digestive factory, with its enormous concentrations of aldehydes and acids, was a giant source of oxygen. A medium worm about 200 meters long discharged into the atmosphere as much oxygen as 10 square kilometers of green growing photosynthesis surface. And it says here that on Earth, the only mechanism for a sandworm to generate oxygen would be if chemoautotrophic bacteria inhabited its gut, much like sulfur oxidizing bacteria that live in the trophosome of tube worms at deep sea vents or hot vents. Um, there's been some interesting stuff found out about oxygen production down there very recently, hasn't there? A new way of producing oxygen. Yeah, there you go. That's brand new, isn't it? I must have a wee look into that as well. Thus, when we look for Shai-Hulud on different planets, we may not find a sandworm in the Sahara or on Mars, but perhaps on Jupiter's moon Europa, where it could swim the subsurface seas like some great Loch Ness monster. There you go. But that's just reading a little bit there. I'll just, because we have read that, that's from The Biology of the Sandworm by Sybil Hetchell, PhD, but it's in The Science of Dune. Which I think is quite easy to get a hold of, this book, isn't it? Kevin R. Grazer, PhD, is the editor. All sorts of good wee things in this. And there's another one, by the way. Did I bring it over with me? Yeah. Edited by Jeffrey Nichols. There's another one, Dune and Philosophy. Weirding Way of the Mentat. Oh, why? I haven't been able to... We were talking about Mentats the other week. I haven't been able to find my copy of Bill Bryson's book. Oops. But if you bear with me a wee second. Oh no, there it is. We were talking about people who were computers, the closest analog to what is a mentat. Oh crap, what happened there? There we go. Let me just see. Paste. There we go. For anybody who wants a wee quick nosy at it, Wikipedia has a decent wee section on human computers. That it comes under the title "Computer brackets Occupation." And yeah, we were talking just about the different women who I knew. I was saying I didn't know any men in particular who were human computers. But we were talking about a bunch of them. There's quite a few men in there, but there's the NACA human computers. Oh, actually, I thought there's more men than women there. There we go. So just different projects, etc. Just it was kind of interesting. But Bill Bryson had a wee section in his book about computers, which was quite interesting. But I'm still got some books and boxes and things at the minute, folks. But yeah, yeah, that's there, Julian. Thank you very much. I must have it. Always got so much to read, my friend, but it's I wouldn't mind having a wee nosy through that. That we are finding stuff out about the worms here, aren't we? So here we go. And here's the revelation, I suppose. The sand trout, he repeated, was introduced from some other place. This was a wet planet then. They proliferated beyond the capability of existing ecosystems to deal with it. Sand trout insisted the available free water made this a desert planet, and they did it to survive. In a planet sufficiently dry, they could move to their sandworm phase. So I just missed your comment there, Babs. Validania, mea culpa. Cal, yeah, I got there. I got it, Babs. Thank you. So yeah, there we go. So the sand trout, as we said, is an introduced species, a foreign vector, if you like. And that they did this to the planet, I think. So it's one of the, I suppose, the interesting mysteries of Dune. What happened to the planet? We're getting an answer here. The sand trout, she shook her head, not doubting him, but unwilling to search those depths where he gathered such information. And she thought, sand trout, many times in this flesh and other, had she played the childhood game polling for sand trout, teasing them into a thin glove membrane before taking them to the death still for their water. It was difficult to think of this mindless little creature as a shaper of enormous events. Um, Again, we've got examples of introduced species within our history. Probably the one example I used, I think, in my work was the cane toad. I think into Australia, um, why it was introduced, what happened, and then plans to sort it out, if you like, consequences. But this mindless little creature is a shaper of enormous events. Leto nodded to himself. Fremen had always known to plant predator fish in their water cisterns. The haploid sand trout actively resisted great accumulations of water near the planet's surface. Predators swam in that quantity below him. Their sandworm vector could handle small amounts of water, the amounts held in cellular bondage by human flesh, for example. But confronted by large bodies of water, their chemical factories went wild, exploded in the death transformation which produced the dangerous melange concentration, the ultimate awareness drug employed in a diluted fraction for the siege orgy. That pure concentrate had taken Paul Muad'Dib through the walls of time, deep into the well of dissolution which no other meal had ever dared. One wee thing just I thought that was interesting there. It said just predators swam in the quantity below him. The sandworm vector could handle small amounts of water, the amounts held in cellular bondage by human flesh, for example. And I wondered, what does he mean by that? Is it just a way of defining a certain amount of water, or is it suggestive that the sandworm vector? No, that's the sandworm he's talking about. Sorry, I thought for a minute he was talking about the sand trout. That's correct, isn't it? The sandworm vector could handle small amounts of water. So it's no problem eating people. Basically, that's what I hunts humans is what I got. I was wondering there, but I thought they were. Let me just check that. 36. Vector could handle. There's sandworm vector. Yeah. So that's the. Well, that again kind of makes it interesting. If they end up eating loads and loads of people, that might be a bit of a problem for them, wouldn't it? But that's small amounts of water. But confronted by large bodies of water, their chemical factories went wild, exploded in the death transformation, which produced the dangerous melange concentration, the ultimate awareness drug employed in a diluted fraction for the siege orgy. That pure concentrate had taken Paul Muad'Dib through the walls of time, deep into the well of dissolution, which no other meal had ever dared. Excuse me. So Ghanima, we're told, sensed her brother trembling where he sat in front of her. "What have you done?" she demanded. But he would not leave his own train of revelation. Fear sand trout, the ecological transformation of the planet. They resisted, of course, she said. And now she began to understand the fear in his voice, drawn into this thing against her will. "When the sand trout go, so do all the worms," he said. "The tribes must be warned." So, in terms of what you were saying, Cynthia, didn't Paul already know that the end of the worms meant the end of the spice? I think that was the spice and the worm thing, but this is, I suppose we're saying here that the danger to the sand trout is the big threat here. And if they go, that's the association, isn't it? When the sand trout go, so do all the worms. The tribes must be warned. "No more spice," she said. There we go. No more spice. Words merely touched high points of the system danger, which they both saw hanging over human intrusion into Dune's ancient relationships. System danger and systemic thinking. Interesting way of putting it. Pardon me. And now this is where this knowledge stretches into the rest of the plot, if you like, and we see how we were talking a minute or two ago about um, how how Frank loves to sort of weave all these threads together. Here's this thing, and it's we're gonna weave that in with Alia here, and all of this revelation that Leto's just made here, that no more spice, that Ghanima and Leto have figured out. It's the thing that Alia knows, he said. It's why she gloats. How can you be sure of that? Ghanima asks. I'm sure, says Leto. And now she knew for certain what disturbed him, and she felt the knowledge chill her. The tribes won't believe us if she denies it, he said. His statement went to the primary problem of their existence. And you can imagine this is probably a problem that Alia would have had as well. Um, this is quite funny. It also I've talked a wee bit about Joe Kidd from Robo Hunter, who's a foul-mouthed pilot who's been rejuvenated into a foul-mouthed baby, and he's a baby with who can talk and shoot and has all the desires and knowledge of a fully grown adult man. Exceptionally foul-mouthed baby. And the great joke in Robo Hunter is the story that he's from. Sorry, he hangs around with Sam Slade, the Robo Hunter. Is that he's very vicious, and somebody will just pick him up and go. The problem is that they look like 9-year-old children. They are 9-year-old children, and they're treated like 9-year-old children. I would say probably not the average 9-year-old children, but we're told this is the primary problem of their existence. What Fremen expected wisdom from a 9-year-old, a wise one perhaps, but I always say you take wisdom where you find it. No matter what shape or form it comes in, Alia growing farther and farther from her own inner sharing each day, played on this. We must convince Stilgar, Ghanima said. And again, that rings back to what we get previously with Jessica, asking us, what's going on? Does nobody trust Stilgar? What's happened to here? This kind of thing. Stilgar is the trustworthy thing here, isn't he? As one, their heads turned and they stared out over the moonlit desert. It was a different place now, changed by just a few moments of awareness. Human interplay with that environment had never been more apparent to them. They felt themselves as integral parts of a dynamic system held in delicately balanced order. The new outlook involved a real change of consciousness which flooded them with observations. As Leat Kynes had said, the universe was a place of constant conversation between animal populations. The haploid sandtrout had spoken to them as human animals. Now, I think that's very, very interesting. Within this chapter, this is an ecology-heavy chapter, if you like. And certainly from the times that Herbert's writing, Dune, the ecological awareness that clearly the book and clearly that he has, this is a wee bit of a message from Frank, I think. And it's we talk about at the beginning of this chapter, interestingly enough, depending on what you think about it, it says I give you the desert chameleon whose ability to blend itself into the background tells you all you need to know about the roots of ecology and the foundations of personal identity. I disagree entirely. But in terms of ecology, there's the ideas that modern day ecological thinking is built out of combination of different sciences, if you like. But it's to me, it's the word of your household. Ecology, if you like, economics and ecology in that sense, the rule and the care of your household, for example, is the subject of ancient texts such as Hesiod's works and Days, for example. I'm sure there's probably books older than that treat with the same subject, but if there isn't, then that's about 800. It's 8th century BC, isn't it? And I'd argue there's an ecological awareness there. Um, there's oddly enough, I don't know how you would put it, maybe, but there's certainly the subject of part of the Epic of Gilgamesh. One of the sort of motivations for Gilgamesh within the epic itself is the ecological destruction of his own lands and by him in order to build his city, if you like. So there's certainly an aspect to ecological thinking that's been around, for certainly a long, long time, I think. Um, but just the association with your ecological, what was it again? The roots of ecology and the foundations of personal identity. I think that's particularly going to do with the associations with the Atreides character, and that their different ecological policies kind of really will put their stamp on their character. If you see what I mean within the Dune series, and that's certainly going to be a major thing with Leto. I think it was a means to an end for Paul in many ways within the first Dune book, and it's a dream, but then I suppose Dune Messiah is the fulfillment of that dream, and keeping good on the promissory, if you like, to the Fremen to try and build this paradise on their desert world. Here we are, where it's not really. It's this is the road to hell paved with good intentions, isn't it? This kind of thing. But this is, yeah. There's definitely a bit of and again, we've moved from, I suppose, Frank's ecological thinking, if we want to call it that, in relation to the Dune series, in terms of his writing, begins in the 50s. Dune published in the early to mid 60s, and then we've jumped ahead again here, haven't we? Yeah, we're into the 70s now, hence the surfboard, I thought. But this is a new outlook that's required, isn't it? Human interplay with the environment had never been more apparent to him. They felt themselves as integral parts of a dynamic system held in delicately balanced order. The new outlook involved a real change of consciousness, which flooded them with observations. The universe is a place of constant conversation between animal populations. The haploid sandtrout had spoken to them as human animals. It sort of rings a bit the same as whenever we do notice modern ecological disasters, etc. And I suppose with modern media and stuff, that these things are, made apparent to us. We're made aware of them on a global scale, which is something that not used to not happen, I suppose, prior to maybe television and radio. Only through books and annals and records and things like that. Excuse me. But it's definitely, I think, part of Herbert's desire for an ecological consciousness. Observe, So the tribes would understand a threat to water, Leto said, but it's a threat to more than water. This is Ghanima talking. She fell silent, understanding this. At their roots, Fremen remained special application animals, desert survivors, governance experts under conditions of stress, and as water became plentiful, a strange symbol transfer came over them even while they understood the old necessities. Now that's quite interesting. I'll finish that, sorry. And as water became plentiful, a strange symbol transfer came over them even while they understood the old necessities. You mean a threat to power? She corrected him. Of course. And Ghanima says this, but will they believe us? If they see it happening, if they see the imbalance. Balance, she said, and repeated her father's words from long ago. It's what distinguishes a people from a mob. That's Paul's words. I disagree entirely. Just before we go any further, let me just jump back here. It's the threat. It's a threat to more than water. You mean a threat to power, of course. As it's this bit, as water became plentiful, a strange symbol transfer came over them, even while they understood the old necessities. It's the symbol transfer. Um, when I have water in my notebooks here, let me see. Let me jump back to somewhere where there was water. Oh, there it is there. How I represent water in my book, for example, as a symbol, is often I just do three wee wavy lines like that, and I color it blue. What it made me think on was kind of the Butlerian jihad, etc., and the importance of symbols to religions, that you just can't get rid of these things. That you have to understand that they're important, and it's difficult for their meaning to change, if you like. And we have lots of symbols within human society that we fundamentally used to. We have we've got symbols on our roads and traffic and all that sort of stuff, shops and all sorts of things. We have symbols, individual characters, if you like, that can represent all sorts of things. Religions, for example, we've got the cross, the crescent, and we've got the Star of David. These things identify a particular thing, don't they? A particular religion, just one symbol, no words, and that they're important, and that it's hard for them to change over time. I think an interesting one is kind of that association that people have with within the Hindus have within Hinduism has the what do you call it now? Is it there's a swastika and a shustika, and those representations of those symbols universally prior to World War II and the rise of the Nazis, the association, the Hakenkreuz, isn't it? Is often people confused, I think, sometimes with the swastika. Maybe it is. I think maybe the Nazis did use the swastikas as well. I think there's a sort of campaign by quite a few Hindus over the years to reclaim the swastika and the shustika, to get them back take them back from that association that they have with the Nazi regime, if you see what I mean. But it's an example of a symbol that's been changed and reappropriated. It's quite an interesting one. You find it in all sorts of things. You'll find them in architecture and stuff like that. You'll find them mostly, and it's as my understanding is, it's a stellar symbol. I always thought it's a northern hemisphere thing, isn't it? But it's in relationship to Ursa Major or something like that. You can draw that sort of stellar map if you like. If you ever practice, if you're ever doing mathematics with four transformations of a shape through an axis, if you like, that shape will, if you use that as your axis, if it's a position of the sun, if you like, it's that you can draw that to rotate the one object into all the different shapes, and you'll see that symbol there. But this is that's an example of, I suppose, a symbol being corrupted, but the symbol here of water on Arrakis and what it represents, is wealth and therefore power. And as well, it's survival, isn't it? It's life itself. Now, no. Let me see. Sorry, I've jumped back here with my pages here. Where do we get to? All I believe was the symbol was the bit. As water became plentiful, a strange symbol transfer came over them, even while they understood the old necessity. And you see that within their language there. So Leto starts off by saying the tribes would understand, how are we going to explain this? The tribes would understand a threat to water. That symbol has transferred, and that's the transfer. What you mean, a threat to power? And that's the translation of it, isn't it? That's what it equates to. And you can maybe see that the possession of water prior to what's happened here would indicate great wealth on Arrakis. What does it mean now when there's such an abundance of water? But that she's he says a threat to water. There's a subtext there that she sees. You mean a threat to power? Of course, is what he says. But and then of course we get this. But will they believe us? Basically, because we're 9-year-olds. The sense is from the two of them that if they see it, they'll believe it. If they see the unbalance. Balance, she said, and repeated her father's words from long ago. It's what distinguishes a people from a mob. I really don't believe that at all. To be honest with you, I do. I've opinions about mobs, but I'll not go into them too much. But her words called up their father in him, and he said, "Economics versus beauty, a story older than Sheba." He sighed, looking over his shoulder at her. "I'm beginning to have prescient dreams, Gani." There we go. A sharp gasp escaped her. So Leto is now in the same book um, as Paul, if you like, and to a degree Alia. He said, "When Stilgar told us our grandmother was delayed, I already knew that moment. Now my other dreams are suspect." Leto, she shook her head, eyes damp. "It came later for our father. Don't you think it might be? I've dreamed myself enclosed in armor and racing across the dunes," he said. "I've been to Jacurutu." Jacu, she cleared her throat. "That old myth? A real place, Gani. And you'll find it at jacurutu.com. Which is, yeah, there we go. Anybody wants to check out jacurutu.com, it's a great resource for all things Dune. Particularly the orthodox herbitarians in you. Jacurutu, we'll have to have a wee chat about this. This mythical place, a real place, Gani. I must find this man they call the preacher. I must find him and question him. You think he's our father? Ask yourself that question. It would be just like him, she agreed. But I don't like the things I know I'll do, he said. For the first time in my life, I understand my father. She felt excluded from his thoughts and said, "Preacher's probably just an old mystic." Now, I made a real mess here of my notes, and I missed a paragraph, but I've got it all corrected. I've got all sorts of arrows going all over the place. Before we jump any further, let's go to Jacurutu, folks. Not the website, but let's let me just bring up a couple of things here. That's the things I bookmarked for this book club. I was just looking at some of them. There are a list of piscine and amphibian humanoids way up there somewhere. Where are we? The Legend of Jacurutu in Ancient Times. Let's just open up a couple of things here. Open a new tab. That's one. What did I open it? Right. Open a new tab. I got one more here. Let's have a look. Okie dokie, isn't it? Right, now, Jacurutu. Got a couple of things on this. First of all, the word is possibly a derivative of a couple of things, but we have, first of all, Bubu virginianus nakurutu, which is the South American great horned owl, also known as the Colombian great horned owl, Venezuelan great horned owl, or desert great horned owl, is a subspecies of the great horned owl, Burbo virginianus. It lives in tropical South America. It generally occurs in more open areas than North American great horned owls and avoids dense human forest, for example, the Amazon rainforest. Unlike other subspecies of the great horned owl, the eyes of the South American horned owl are amber rather than yellow. Although the largest owl in its range, it's a relatively small horned owl. So, just in terms of where does the word, what does it have anything particular to do with? Let me see. Just open that up there. Wait a second. Oh, I see it. Citation video LGBT 1817. Localities as the Magellanic Islands, Hebrew imaging. Oh, sorry, that's just I found something that must have been the original classification of the animal. That's cool. Right, let's get out of that. Now, what we also have. Crap, right, hang on, I need to translate this. We're relying on Google Translate here, folks. But this is from Dune Arrakis, Brazil, who you'll find about the place. I think probably on, I think he's on YouTube and possibly Twitter. Not that I'm on there. But this is to do with the legend of Jacurutu. I don't know if I can fit this link in or not. Let's see. Hang on. We'll just give it to you folks here. Oh, it fitted. Here we go. This will give you a link to the wee article I'm going to read, folks. Now, the legend of the Jacurutu. Here we go. In the past, there lived on the upper Uatuma a cannibalistic chief who only ate the flesh of children and who gave no respite to the warlike Arawak Indians of the northern Amazon. His name was Jacurutu. It so happened that after a certain date, Jacurutu began to eat the children of the Muras Indians, his neighbors to the south. The Muras went to the shaman to ask for help in confronting this abominable neighbor. Several spells were cast, countless emissaries were dispatched, but nothing could dissuade the bloodthirsty Jacurutu. And the Kuramins, has in brackets boys there, continued to disappear. Desperate, the Muras tasked the grandfather of the turtle, Urara Ramonha, which has a sticky shell, with approaching the chief and setting a trap for him. The old turtle searched and searched and ended up finding Jacurutu. He talked to him. He offered him some eggs and said he was on a mission of peace. Then he said, "Sir, you're tired. Rest your foot on my shell." When he followed the turtle's suggestion, Jacurutu got his foot stuck in the slime on the shell. Then the turtle's grandfather dragged the chief into the river, who drowned. Feeling that he was going to die, Jacurutu left a message for the Muras. "My grandchildren," he said. "I ate children, it's true. I thought they were of the accursed Arawak race. Only now am I finding out that they were Muras. It was a regrettable mistake. Without a doubt, I was betrayed by Anang, the devil. I ask you to forgive me and avenge me. Do not forget that the Arawak people are the sworn enemy of the Mura nation, and that they will not rest until they have destroyed all of your villages. Since I cannot restore the lives of your children," continued Jacurutu, "I will leave you an inheritance capable of perfecting your weapons. My corpse will turn into a plant. My arms will produce the red ipe wood for bows, the bamboo for arrows, and the paracuba for arrowheads. From my nerves will come the succumb for bowstrings, from my hair the karawa thread to tie the feathers, and from my fat the oil to lubricate and soften the string." Having said this, Jacurutu and his people were never heard from again. The Muras perfected their arsenal of weapons. They destroyed the Arawaks and became absolute masters of the Negro River. But they noticed that it was from this time on that a strange bird the size of a toucan appeared in the forest, which nests in the hollows of the trees. During the day, it sleeps in a tall trunk, and at night it hunts and shouts the onomatopoeia of its name. Hearing its mournful voice, the Indian stops all activity. He remains still, mute, until that ominous bird stops its macabre recital. The shamans say that it is the tormented soul of Jacurutu, who wanders lost in the woods, fulfilling a penance imposed by Tupa. Now, it says legendary Amazon, Altino Berthier, Brazil, editor, Posena Art and Culture, 1999 is the reference. And it says it's also taken from a parablog here with a link. Let me just see. Again, that English translation. There we go. And I'll just put in the link for that there. So I've just read that thing in its entirety for you folks. I've seen some stuff on that before. That's a Jacurutu myth. Interestingly enough, in that one, that the bird is a toucan, isn't it? I think. Where do we see that? Masters of the River. Strange bird. Sorry, it's not. It's not that. It says they noticed it was from this time on that a strange bird the size of a toucan appeared in the forest, which nests in the hollows of the trees. So that's kind of interesting in terms of it's a bird like a toucan, size of a toucan. Sorry, and again, we're wondering, is this where we get the Jacurutu word for name for this owl, the South American great horned owl? Could be that bird. Its mournful voice. Hearing its mournful voice, the Indian stops all activity. He remains still, mute, till the ominous bird stops its macabre recital. So we have, I suppose, Jacurutu involves a bird, which we could take for being an owl for the first time, its first appearance. Is the same thing with the partridge that we talked about earlier. But there you go. So Jacurutu. This chief, cannibalistic chief, who ate, he ate children. There you go. He ate the children of the Miraz Indians, his neighbors to the south. There we go. So there's association with cannibalism, and we're going to get that with Jacurutu within the Dune series here. But there we go. That's what we have on it. The South American great horned owl, as I said, it's what would you call it? Its full name, I suppose, proper name, Bubo virginianus Jacurutu, is what we had on that there, folks. I think there's probably a wee bit more. I think it's Jacurutu is the sort of thing that's kind of provoked a few people into looking into this kind of thing, but myths, I suppose, within different cultures and stuff, the owl has lots of associations, particularly in Greek mythology and so on. It's associated with all sorts of things, and can be seen as a harbinger of doom and death. This kind of thing can be associated with wisdom. What have we got? Let's have a look. Symbolism and mythology of owls. Let's see. Harbingers of death, evil and misfortune, omens. Sumerian and ancient Semitic cultures associated with Lilith. This association also occurs in the Bible in some translations. Modern Western, let's see. Wisdom and vigilance. Though is often considered a bird of ill omen. That's interesting. There you go. Pliny. We were talking about illustrations recently within the Dune series. Pliny tells us how on one occasion Rome itself, the whole city, underwent illustration because one of them had strayed into the capital. It's a bird. That's an owl, a funeral bird, etc. And Virgil describes its death howl from the top of a temple by night, etc. So let me see. Is there any others? Let's see. Hinduism. Owl is the Vahana, the mount of the goddess Lakshmi, especially in the eastern region of India. They're considered a symbol of wealth, prosperity, wisdom, good luck, and fortune. Also associated with evil times in Hinduism. Native American cultures, let's have a look. The reputation of owls as bearers of supernatural danger. When they tell misbehaving children, the owls will get you. Very good. I did not know that. And in most Native American folklore, owls are a symbol of death. There we go. So it's quite common, really, isn't it? Let's see. According to the Apache and Seminole tribes, hearing owls hooting is considered the subject of numerous bogeyman stories told to warn children to remain indoors at night and not to cry too much, otherwise the owl may carry them away. Some tribal legends, owls are associated with spirits of the dead. Let's see. Aztecs and Mayans considered the owl a symbol of death and destruction. Aztec god of death, Mictlantecutli, sorry about that, was often depicted with owls. Okay, here's something. There's an old saying in Mexico that is still in use. I'll just read this here, excuse my pronunciation. Cuando el tecolote canta el indio muere. When the owl cries, sings, the Indian dies. Oh dear. I love those. I think they're great. The Popol Vuh, a Mayan religious text, describes owls as messengers of Xibalba, the Mayan place of fright. What else have we got? Anything else? Original Canadian character using the symbol of both evil and death. Yeah, it's pretty much that. There you go. But a little bit of wisdom as well. Sorry, folks. Anyway, that's the Jacurutu myth. Going to be important within this story. And again, Frank doesn't magically pull a word like that out of thin air. He's again, so I suppose what Julian was saying is it's kind of hard to figure out. We've actually got a list of books that we know for a fact through by doing this book club that Frank's read and quoted from or used information from. It's an interesting list of things. As you'd expect, it's quite eclectic, isn't it? So Jacurutu, and he's been there by the. And we're also getting this prescient dream of Leto's that he's enclosed in armor. Jacurutu, that old myth, a real place, Gani. I must find this man they call the preacher. I must find him. You think? Ask yourself that question. Kind of funny. The little bit there, though, back onto where we were at. I don't like the things I know I'll do, he said. For the first time in my life, I understand my father. It's the hard choices that Leto. And again, we get to compare Paul and Leto, don't we? And then she felt excluded from his thoughts and said, the preacher's probably just an old mystic. Right, now, here's where I made a mess of my notes. And I've got them in the wrong order. So hopefully, let's just double check we're okay here. 53, let's see. Right, I pray for that. He whispered, oh, how I pray for that. He rocked forward, got to his feet. The balisette hummed in his hand as he moved. Would that he were only Gabriel without a horn. No, I didn't look that up at the time, but let's have a wee nosy. Now, Gabriel, we're referring to the Archangel Gabriel. Now, Gabriel is horn, I'm assuming. Is that from Revelations or is that from the old, something else to do with the Old Testament? Let's have a look. In the Abrahamic religions, Gabriel is an archangel with the power to communicate God's will to humanity. He turns up in the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, the Quran, the Kitab, Actus, many Christian traditions, including Eastern Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Lutheranism, and Anglicanism, revered Gabriel as a saint. Right, let's see. Appears in the Book of Enoch, blah, 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 blah. Etymology, Gabriel, something of God. What would it mean? Let's see. Composed the first person singular possessive form of the Hebrew noun gaver, meaning man. No, God, so man of God. Or power of God. Jibril, in Arabic, Jibril. Jibril, is that? Means power of God. Right. Okay, Zoroaster. Let's have a look for the horn. I think it's within Christianity. Let's have a look. Oh, here, do you know what? I'm daft. Let's just hit the find on the. Right, bear with me a wee second. There we go. For goodness sake, Gabriel's horn. Right. The reference then, Gabriel's horn geometric feature. A familiar. Here we go. I suppose I wanted to read this myself anyway. Let's have a wee nosy. A familiar image of Gabriel has him blowing a trumpet blast to announce the resurrection of the dead at the end of time. That's interesting. I've got a copy of a picture here somewhere in the house. It's La Chute de l'Angel Revelu, the fall of the rebel angels. I was trying to identify the different archangels by the representation, but there's definitely one with and that must be him, with a horn. However, through the Bible, let's see. Though the Bible mentions a trumpet blast preceding the resurrection of the dead, it never specifies Gabriel as the trumpeter. Different passages state different things. The angels of the Son of Man. This is Matthew 24:31. The voice of the Son of God is John 5:25-29. God's trumpet in Thessalonians. Several angels sounding a series of blasts in Revelation, or simply a trumpet will sound in Corinthians. Likewise, the early Christian church fathers do not mention Gabriel as a trumpeter, and in Jewish and Muslim traditions, Gabriel is again not identified as a trumpeter. The earliest known identification of Gabriel as a trumpeter, they wish to get somebody to write these out a bit better, comes from the hymn of the Armenian saint Nerses Shnorhali, for protection in the night. The sound of Gabriel's trumpet on the last night makes us worthy to hear and to stand on your right hand among the sheep with lanterns of inextinguishable light, to be like the 5 wise virgins, so that with the bridegroom in the bride chamber, we, his spiritual brides, may enter into glory. That just sounds wrong. Let me see. In Armenian art, in 1455, it says in Armenian art, there's an illustration in an Armenian manuscript showing Gabriel sounding his trumpet as the dead climb out of their graves. So it sounds like it's a modern attachment to the character, doesn't it? I suppose. Let me see. Oh, hang on a second. Bear with me. Yeah, there we are. Interesting. Right, folks, where are we? Let's see. But there were only Gabriel without a horn. It seems that, well, there you go. That's an interesting statement to make. The preacher would that he was only Gabriel without his horn. All words and no consequences, I suppose, that kind of thing, maybe. But it's kind of interesting, isn't it, that Gabriel doesn't have a horn? So that makes him interesting. I don't know. He stared silently at the moonlit desert. Why Jacurutu? No, hang on. That's me. I've got to jump back a paragraph, folks, now. How are we doing? We're nearly done. I'll catch up with your comments quickly, and then I'll push on towards the end. Let's see. Oh, right, way back. Let's see. Got Babs' Mia Culpa. It was Caledonian. Yes, Caledonian. It's quite hard to say. There's the Tester of Commas, Nenya. Hey, Doc. Greetings, the Tester of Commas, Nenya. How's it going? Thanks very much for joining us. And Joseph Smith's had to reload. Hi, Joseph. We had all sorts of bother trying to get on tonight. We got booted at 9 o'clock, I think, and then reloaded, sort of, and it didn't quite work. So we started again at 10 o'clock. But good to see you, Joseph. So they said the Fremen must have many memories of power over their long diaspora. Their desert power may be older than Pardo kinds, but it certainly changed upon adopting imperial tech and planetary goals. Yeah, they've been on the wrong end of power, haven't they, for a long time, in the display of power. And it's always been, I have to get the sense that it's always been under the form of religious persecution. But yeah, I also got the sense that Salusa Secundus is a desert as well. It's an environmentally wrecked planet. That's their second stop. I would say possibly something that they picked up a few tricks there. Their desert power may be older than Pardo kinds. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. As much as what we've got essentially with. Well, I suppose whenever we get to Judas, we kind of get the end product of all of those migrations, because they're stuck there, aren't they? They can't really go. They can't leave Arrakis because of the melange, but they must have, as you say, they've picked up. They must have many memories of power. Is a very elegant way of putting it, but at the same time, they must have picked up a lot of tricks. They've learned a thing or two. Culturally, the Fremen technically. Well, how many planets did we have here? Is it the migrations we counted there earlier? And I must double check that page reference for next time, because I wrote down the wrong thing. But the Fremen as a people have, let me see, have the experience, cultural history, if you like, of 8 different worlds, as a people, and have kept, you'd imagine, a fair amount of their culture and language and etc., even though it's evolved, it would have to. you know. But at this point, we're seeing another evolution of the Fremen, aren't we? That they're adopting imperial tech planetary goals. Um, yeah, it's careful what you wish for, isn't it? It's to go from one type of existence just changing that so suddenly. It would be incredible, wouldn't it? It would be massive culture shock on your people, I think. And it would have a pretty damaging effect, I think, to the Fremen, Carlos is asking, Cynthia, weren't the Zen Sunni wanderers traditionally pacifists? Pardon me. Cynthia's saying, Carlos, not sure what Herbert said, though the Fremen were persecuted and forced to flee. I'm thinking of different kinds of power, not just martial. What kind of power loss would frighten them now? Well, it's the interesting thing. What kind of power loss would frighten them now? It would have to be melange. The waters ceased to be a problem, wouldn't it? The sense of power that they have comes from melange as well, because they control. In essence, even though the Atreides think they control it, Arrakis. The truth is, it's the Fremen, isn't it? Really. And perhaps not at this point in the story. But yeah, there are different types of power. What kind of power loss would frighten them now? And fundamentally, it's the power. It's the power of what melange. As much as the two of them said water, and then you mean a threat to power. Melange is the real power here, isn't it? Now, because the water isn't. I suppose in terms of, we call it Liebig's minimum? Sorry, Liebig's barrel, the law of the minimum. What's the thing that's really under threat here? It's the melange. What's the problem with that? It's fundamental to the, especially if we're talking about an ecological transformation of this planet, it's fundamental to all of the Fremen are addicts. We're told previously, weren't we, with the blue within blue within blue, it's the badge of their addiction, but it's also a kind of badge of honor in a way, isn't it? But it would be death to them, literally death to them, not culturally or metaphorically or anything like that. From what we've been told about the effects of melange, if melange disappeared off the planet, those that are alive on it now, who've taken, it's in the air, it's in their food, it's in their water, at the very least, those generations who've grown up like that would be really hard pressed to stay alive. I think they would need a source of it. It's a bit like putting a bunch of wealthy people in a room and going, well, I'm going to take one resource away from you in the room, and you've all got your money on you, and what we've got water, we've got food, you've got your wealth, and there's the air in the room. And what do you consider to be most important to your survival right now? If I took away one resource, if you had any sense, it's the air, isn't it? Because that's the lack of that will kill you quickest. That's kind of where I sort of took the threat to power. It wasn't really water. Or the water, the tribes would understand the threat to water, Leto said, but maybe not. They would understand it, but can they relate to it now at this point in the book? Because water is so abundant, it's on the surface. It's what the dream was that they talked about way back in June. Water, open water, kids going along Portugals and all of this stuff. Do you remember that speech? I think is it. I'm not sure if it's. I think it's Stilgar's dream, isn't it, or the way he describes it. If I'm remembering correctly, excuse me. But what kind of power loss would frighten them now? They are the kind of, politically, if you want to, we have to consider the Fremen part of the politics of the universe. They're in a very powerful position. You could argue that they're the equivalent of a major house, if you like, but they're still sitting on top of the economical powerhouse, if you like. But I think because they're losing all sorts of, they'll lose more than just that, won't they? Something they'll lose their power, as you say. that there's different types of power, but it's different types of agency, different types of abilities to look after themselves. I said, I think the real problem too, it's a threat, it's an existential threat, I think, fundamentally to the Fremen, whether they realize that or not. And I suppose the point of this chapter is understanding about balance and understanding that you're a part of your own environment, you're a part of the ecosystem, and how you function within it, this kind of thing. Carlos was that wee link I put in just underneath Cynthia's comment was a link to the original posting, I think, of the Jacurutu myth. I'm not sure what. I've no knowledge of Spanish or Portuguese. I wouldn't know a word of them hardly, apart from hello, possibly. But I just hit the English Google English Translate for that. So apologies to everybody. My knowledge of those languages is piss poor. Carlos is saying most southwestern native salt isles as harbingers of doom. Yeah, it seems to be a pretty consistent culturally across the world, Carlos, with just I think really the Greeks having a bit of an exception to that. Pardon me. The slight European sense about it. I've got lots of mythical associations with animals in Ireland, and I would have always taken the owl. I wonder if that's true, actually, to be a bird of wisdom. That's possibly me overlapping. Let me have a wee look. But I wonder, does Tuan turn into an owl? Let me see. Probably the same. Yeah, yeah, I suppose. There you go. In Irish and Celtic mythology, owls are associated with death, the underworld, and shadows. Sometimes called the corpse bird. There you go. That's me overlapping stuff, I suppose. But I've always thought they were kind of interesting. It says here the screech of this is the AI thing that Google produces now. The screech of the barn owl is said to be responsible for the legend of the Banshee, a female spirit who foretells death with her mournful screams. Let me just see. Guide to the Underworld. Creature of keen sight and darkness is silent and swift hunter. Psychopomp. No, I'm not wrong. Hang on. It's also wisdom. Yeah, wisdom, spiritual insight, connections to the underworld. And let me see. Divine. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No, yeah. It's sorry, that's a very Irish thing, the whole no, yeah thing. Or yeah, no. But yeah, I would have went with the wisdom thing, but that's probably a bit of, I suppose, cultural bleed, if you like. But yeah, you've always got that, the Halloween kind of thing, and yeah, they are associated. Yeah, very much an association with death and doom and the underworld, that kind of thing. I think they're beautiful. I love owls. I think they're gorgeous. We just got a wee kind of, oddly enough, talking about owls. We bought ourselves some wee kind of our home here. We get a lot of very strong winds here. So we bought some wee kind of weather vane, windy things for the wind. And one of them's a wee owl that rocks back and forth. It's a wee iron thing. It's lovely. Oddly enough, we just bought that this week for the garden. Pardon me. Carlos said, my grandmother told me if you heard an owl hooting outside your window, someone you knew would die within 3 days. And Cynthia, back to your question, I would think loss of identity would be very frightening to them. Well, that's a good point, Carlos, I suppose, because their identity is fundamentally tied to the environment of Dune, isn't it? If we go back, I think that's a very good way of putting it, Carlos. Pardon me. Our epigraph, as much as I had considered it a bit about Paul and Leto, we could consider it about the Fremen. I give you the desert chameleon whose ability to blend itself into the background tells you all you need to know about the roots of ecology and the foundations of personal identity. pardon me, there's no reason why we can't transpose that onto group identity, can we? And it's the tribes we're talking about here. They understand a threat to water, but it's a threat to power. Would they get that? And would they get it because maybe the nature of power is changing on the planet, the things that represent power? And as we had pointed out, even the symbols, the symbol transfer. So what does water really mean now? I suppose prior to this, it was life itself, wasn't it? Really, now it's more like personal wealth, personal power, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Well, I'm sorry, my throat's going here a wee bit. Water also represents the ability to put water on this planet like this, but water is, in terms of the power of nature, if you like, it's water itself that's transforming this planet. And we can even think about things like the water of life itself and its transformative abilities. That's the wrong word, not abilities, properties. Sorry. But yeah, it's very good good things to think about, isn't it? But yeah, the loss of their identity, Carlos, we will get there because we'll see that in God Emperor of Dune when they finally become what they end up being, which is the museum Fremen. I've often said that it's one of the things, as much as I'm from Northern Ireland, I've often described my own culture here as being very similar to that. If you see what I mean, the sense of the people here like museum people, and almost in exactly the same way that the Fremen are and will become, But yeah, we're also, again, folks, as much as, for those of you who haven't read too far ahead, I'll give a bit of a spoiler alert if you want to plug your ears here now. But we know, if for those of us who've got through all of these books, we know what happens to the Fremen. They're doomed. They're screwed, and that's regardless of what, in terms of what they see, what they notice, what should frighten them now. Carlos is quite right. Their loss of identity. They're, as much as whatever you want to talk about in terms of political power or wealth, they're going to lose their agency as a people. And you could argue with that. Whenever that goes, they'll lose their vitality, if you like. And that's at the point where they are the Fremen, museum Fremen, and that'll happen sometime between the end of this book and the beginning of the next book. That's where they really have lost themselves, and they're something else, pretending to be older Fremen from the past. If you see, I mean, they're like a tourist attraction, pretty much, aren't they? It's mimesis. They're mimics of what the Fremen used to be, and of course, once the planet goes, that's them. Goodbye. So ultimately their ecological dream, will bring about their destruction as a people. I also think that's something that the Fremen would fear, because the tribe is of paramount importance to their culture. The continuity of the tribe, even at the loss of the individual, this kind of thing. Collectively, the tribes are going to suffer, aren't they? They're going to suffer real badly, real bad. Sorry. I've been playing fast and loose with language these days. Where did we get to, folks? We're nearly at the end, actually. So I just want to grab those comments there. Let's jump back in and head on. So it's what distinguishes the people from a mob. Let's just see. Sorry, next page. Where were we? We just read the wee bit. I pray for that, he whispered. Oh, how I pray for that. He rocked forward, got to his feet. The balisette hummed in his hand as he moved. I suppose we're beginning and ending the chapter with the balisette in a funny way. Would that he were only Gabriel without a horn. He stood silently at the moonlight desert. Why Jacurutu? She asked, and the flatness of her tone shattered the mood. Why? I don't know. When Stilgar first told us how they killed the people there and made the place taboo, I thought what you thought. But danger comes from there now. and the preacher. She didn't respond, didn't demand that he share more of his prescient dreams with her, and she knew how much this told him of her terror. That way led to abomination, and they both knew it. The word hung unspoken between them as he turned and led the way back over the rocks to the Siege entrance. Abomination. Oh no, the thing that we should fear the most, if you like. And there you go, folks. We've hit the end of the chapter. That's a great chapter. It's just these two kids sitting, outside the Siege as the sun goes down and the moon comes up. We get a bit of music, and that stirring, I suppose, the memories that the music stirs, that we dip into the past in the mind of Leto through the other memory, and we get a real bit of insight into the transformation of Arrakis in this chapter. It's dumped a whole pile of stuff on us. We've been told that Arrakis was once a wet world, that it had seas and lakes, and that what we've seen is an ecological disaster. We've not been told that in those terms, but we've simply been told, excuse me, that this species of sand trout, and it's all about the sand trout vector, if you like, have been introduced at some point to this planet. I want to read you something just because it's the perfect time to read it to you. And I've read it before, but for anybody who's not seen my Tiger video, check it out. But Gully Foyle goes to Arrakis. Here you go. It couldn't be more perfect a time when we were talking about this the sand trout here. Just to read this quickly, it's a good way to finish up for the day. But to do with that ecological transformation that the sand trout created, let's see. The sand trout was introduced from some other place. This was a wet planet then, so it's a water world. They proliferated beyond the capability of existing ecosystems to deal with them. Sand trout insisted the available free water made this a desert planet. They did it to survive. In a planet sufficiently dry, they could move to their sandworm phase. The sand trout. Anyway, I'm going to read you this. This is talk about the migrations of the Fremen. This is from The Stars My Destination, by Alfred Bester. I prefer this book's also called Tiger, which was its original title. It's the title I tend to refer to it by. It's a highly influential science fiction book. It's an absolute brilliant book. Love it. I couldn't recommend it more. But I'm just going to quickly read you something from it. The protagonist of this story, arguably, travels through a bunch of worlds at the end of the book. I'll read you the one before and the one after here, but here we go. So this is now. Vega in Lyra, an AO star 26 light years from Earth, burning bluer than Rigel, planetless, but encircled by swarms of blazing comets whose gaseous tails scintillated across the blue-black firmament. And again he turned now into now. Canopus, yellow as the sun, gigantic, thunderous in the silent wastes of space, at last invaded by a creature that was once... Sorry, I'll read that again. Thunderous in the silent... I'll do it again. Right, here we go. Sorry. Canopus, yellow as the sun, gigantic, thunderous in the silent wastes of space, at last invaded by a creature that once was Gild. The creature hung gulping on the beach of the universe, nearer death than life, nearer the future than the past, 10 leagues beyond the wide world's end. It wondered at the masses of dust, meteors, and motes that girdled Canopus in a broad flat ring like the rings of Saturn, and of the breadth of Saturn's orbit, and it shifts to another world there. But Canopus, folks, is so I just thought that was very interesting. This is from Tiger, and whether there's a connection or not, I probably seriously doubt it. But nearly said Gurney Halleck there. Gully Foyle, sorry. Pardon me. 1956, this was first published. Canopus is where Arrakis is. We do lots of wee works on. We've done loads of work on the planets in Dune, and often go by their stars, etc., etc. But often that there's particular myths there. But there you go. Just to let you know that Arrakis is the third planet orbiting the star Canopus. That's an interesting thing. And I wonder, here's my little thing. I wonder, is the little creature on the beach the sand trout? Wouldn't that be cool? Is that a little weird science fiction connection? At last invaded by a creature that once was gilled, the creature hung gulping on the beach of the universe, nearer death than life, nearer the future than the past, 10 leagues beyond the wide world's end. Love this book. The 10 Leagues Beyond the Wide World's End is a reference to Tom O'Bedlam. But if you want to have a wee sort of nosy at it, I did a video. It seems to have done quite well on Tiger. It's a book I love. It's a book that a lot of science fiction aficionados consider the best science fiction novel written. I don't know, but it's one of the best. It's certainly for its time. I think it's tip-top stuff, But there we go, folks. We've got another chapter. Loads to take in. And as I said, the threat to Arrakis is we're starting to see this, the change to the planet. And it's only really through other memory, I suppose. We've got that exploration within this chapter as well, and how it's we're starting to get a little bit of a sense of how it works with Leto. The multitude mainly come at him at night, and that they're a bit that it seems they're a bit forceful. He gets memories which have fastened him to places his flesh had never known, presented him with answers to questions he had not asked. And we also find out that Ghanima is not really as bothered by it as he is. I suppose referring to the haploid phase of the sand trout, the question is, does that move into a diploid phase or some kind to become the sandworm? There's lots of interesting stuff here. But yes, indeed, the great ecological plan, isn't that how it's put? The great ecological plan is not going according to plan. And I suppose it's all a question of what do you want and what do you need, isn't it, really? Because if you fundamentally think about it, if the worms died, what's the real harm to the universe if we can get a whole generation off this drug, if we've got the whole universe addicted to this thing? And its benefits don't really seem to be... put it this way, I would almost think it wouldn't really seem to be your drug of choice, would it? The real appeal would be in longevity, and at the same time, it doesn't really seem to give, certainly the powerful and wealthy, any kind of lifespan beyond what seems normal. I thought that interesting what we were talking about tonight, that the Bene Gesserit do have the ability to stop aging, which is interesting, But some great questions tonight, folks, by the way. Thank you very much. Yeah, and Carlos, by the way, thank you very much as well about your grandmother's story. I like that. And yeah, it's a wee bit like the Howl of the Banshee. We have the Banshee in this company. That's if you hear the Howl of a Banshee, you're dead. That's as simple as that. That's not a good thing to hear. Banshee is just kind of like the word means like a female elf, basically, isn't it? But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, thanks, Doc, says Cynthia, and all, and I appreciate the story of Jacurutu. Very interesting. The links are there, folks. That was just me reading it out. Some other people have gone about and fished that out, I think, but it's definitely something I'd like to learn a little bit more about. In terms of the myth, by the way, the Jacurutu myth really does line up. It's cannibalism, isn't it? And again, within, it seems interfamilial or intertribal, if you like, cannibalism. It's a myth that seems to be very much on par with the cannibalism that you would get within the curse of the Pelopids, if you like, but yeah, it's an interesting one, and of course the myth in this. I wonder where Frank actually got the story from. I think as was Julian was pointing out earlier, we know he's read X, Y, and Z, but that's there was a bit of a discussion on the internet a while back, a few years ago, about the Jacurutu myth, I think, and some stuff got brought up in the owl, etc., within its taxonomic name. Excuse me, but those sources, those things there are, I can almost probably categorically state, not where Frank got them from because they're too modern. If that makes sense, that the stuff that I read to you on the Jacurutu myth, I believe, is from the 90s, so it's not something that Frank would have had access to. He must have got a story. He must have got knowledge of the story from somewhere else. But I don't know. It would probably take a wee bit of specialist reading to find out something. We would probably need to find a good mythographer of South American myths, if you like, some good piece on some good work on mythology there. I don't have such a book, sadly. But that would be quite interesting, Love a good book. Yeah, I love myths of all shapes. All myths and legends are great fun to me. So it's really interesting, to get and Frank's sort of been shifting into the South American cultures as well here, hasn't it? Well, there we go. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, everybody. Some really good questions. As always, I don't have the answers to them. Frank's not always happy to supply, but we could certainly have a good rethink about it. And I'll try and find that. I'll fix that page reference, by the way, for next time. I was trying to give a wee mention of the location of another world on the migratory route of the Fremen, and I've clearly written I'd find it and all. I've clearly written the wrong thing, so I'll have to go find it again. But I didn't want to sit and create lots of dead air there, So I'll put the wee bookmark on that so I can look at it straight away. Carlos is saying the rise of Paul and the Fremen reminds of the line, "What rough beast! It's our come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born." That's the second coming by William Butler Yeats. Yes, indeed. Things fall apart, don't they? It's an interesting poem, Carlos, isn't it? The poem's about Ireland, believe it or not. But yeah, the second coming by Yeats. I'm not a big fan of Yeats, but I do like his poetry. But I'm not a big fan of his mindset, if you see what I mean. But he's a good poet. But yes, indeed, what rough beast it's our come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. It's certainly very appropriate when we're thinking about, as much as you're thinking about the rise of Paul and the Fremen reminds you of that line. It's the rise of Leto is what makes me think of it, Carlos. To be honest with you, it's this guy here, this 9-year-old. He's our rough beast. His hour is coming at last. Yes, indeed. And there's an episode, Carlos, of Old Harry's Game, which is, I don't know if you know Old Harry's Game. It's a BBC comedy radio show. And it's arguably one of the best ones that the BBC's ever produced. It's written by Andy Hamilton, and he stars as Satan. Basically, it's a humanist comedy about religion, and it's everybody's in hell basically. But there's a point where somebody quotes him that line, and he goes, "Well, who said that about me?" And he, "How can I be slouching towards Bethlehem if I haven't been born?" And he goes, and someone tells him that it's William Butler Yeats that wrote it, of course, and he has William Butler Yeats in hell. So off he goes to have a go at him about, what do you mean over this poem. It's a good I think it's called Poet's Corner, possibly the episode, But it's basically the devil having a go at William Butler Yeats for writing this line and for it not making any sense. It's this kind of thing. But yes, indeed, it's a good poem. It's an excellent poem. Yes, indeed. Well, listen, there we are, folks. It's just gone 1 o'clock. I'm so pleased that we managed to get the episode done without any incidents. I know we were meant to start at 9 o'clock tonight, but apologies. We get wee things like that with YouTube now and then. And if we can't go at 9, we'll try 10. Is usually what we do. And if we can't go at 10, then we'll go with the next day. So apologies for us jumping about a bit. And this is our first stop back since being not too well. But I'm mucho better, folks. Yes, indeed, we'll be back on Thursday as normal at 9 p.m. Well, actually, I'm not too sure about that. What I'm doing is I'm going to set my calendar this week, but it'll be Thursday 9 or 10. To be honest with you, but I'm hopefully getting a sense of where my week is at the minute, and then I can allocate time to do this properly in the week, and make sure that really try to make sure that the broadcast goes out on a Thursday at a regular time if I can. So hopefully keep a wee eye out. It'll either be 9 o'clock or 10 p.m. On Thursday as usual. And even if my foot's hanging off, I'll be there. I don't like missing episodes, and especially don't like doing so because I'm sick. Because I don't enjoy being sick at all. I don't like it. So I suppose I don't like being sick so much that I think I'm generally in denial about it and don't notice a lot. But it gets to a point where I suppose even I have to notice. But no, I'm feeling much better. So hopefully all steam ahead. Full steam ahead, sorry, for the rest of the book club for the rest of the year, and we'll punch on through. Let me just check very quickly, folks, because I did say that was chapter 6, that we're doubling up some chapters because they're very short. We've done it once already. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Next time will be one of those. So for next time, folks, we're going to be, chapter 7's only 2 pages. So I could give myself an easy time for next week. But next time we'll do chapter 7 and chapter 8. So that's the chapters that begin with the epigraphs. The universe is God's. That'll be the first one. And then the next one is, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the sand. Just like Carlos saying about the there you go, Carlos. We're going to start getting some, apocalyptic doom, the revelationary, the beast itself. And it's all going to be kind of quite relevant with Leto in many ways. He's going to become bestial, isn't he? Tell you what, I mean, we are in a sense of the genesis of Children of Dune could be considered the genesis of a god emperor, genesis of a tyrant, if you like. Something like it. There's a very good Judge Dredd story that does the I suppose the origin story of Judge Death, and it's called Young Death, Boyhood of a Super Fiend. That's a great title. But it's not quite the same sort of thing. But yes, indeed, we do kind of have a Boyhood of a Super Fiend going on here. But anyway, folks, I'm rambling. So I will see you all hopefully on Thursday for our next 2 chapters of Children of Dune. So there we go. I hope you enjoy your weekend wherever you're at. Take it easy. Look after yourselves. Thanks again, everyone, for your contributions and your chat and your comments and your questions. It's been great fun tonight, and I thought it's gone. I'm quite kind of pleased it's gone quite well in terms of me coughing and spluttering and stuff like that. So there we go. So thanks very much, folks, and I'll say all the best. Good night. Take care. Bye bye.